What if everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations was wrong? What if the greatest secrets of the past are hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered by those daring enough to seek them? In the heart of the Middle East, where the earliest human empires rose and fell, there exist mysteries that defy explanation, stones too large to move, cities that vanished without a trace, and scrolls that might contain knowledge lost to time. Ancient ruins echo with the silent testimony of a forgotten past, and in their shadows, questions linger unanswered. How did the builders of Baalbek manage to transport stones weighing hundreds of tons? What happened to the Sumerians, whose civilization suddenly disappeared? Why are the mysterious carvings at Dara so unlike anything else in the ancient world? And could the lost city of Dilmun be the key to understanding the Garden of Eden itself? These are not just myths. These are questions that modern science has yet to answer. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive deep into 3 hours of the most enigmatic and awe-inspiring mysteries of the ancient Middle East. Let's uncover what lies beneath the sands of time. In the arid plains of southwestern Iran, nestled between the rugged Zagros Mountains and the fertile floodplains of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, lies the ancient heart of Elam. Known to its inhabitants as Hamazi, the land was once home to a vibrant and powerful civilization. The remnants of this enigmatic culture still echo through the ruins of their cities, Susa, Anshan, and the ancient mountain temple of Choga Zanbil, a place where colossal ziggurats rise from the dust, whispering tales of a past long forgotten. For centuries, the Elamites thrived, carving a unique legacy in the shadow of their more famous neighbors, the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Persians. Yet, despite their impressive achievements in art, architecture, and governance, the Elamite civilization has largely faded from history. The question that haunts modern archaeologists and historians is not just how they vanished, but why. By the 6th century BCE, Elam was absorbed into the expanding Persian Empire. In many ways, their fate seemed sealed by the conquering forces of the Medes, and later, the Persians under Cyrus the Great. But the story of the Elamites' disappearance is far more complex than the mere annexation of a kingdom. What happened to the Elamites before their integration into the Persian Empire, and why does so much of their history remain shrouded in mystery? Susa, once a jewel of the ancient world, stands as a testament to their enduring legacy. Its ruins, though still impressive, are now only a faint echo of the grandeur they once held. The city was strategically positioned, linking the cultures of Mesopotamia with the Iranian plateau, and played a significant role as a political and religious center. Susa's palaces, temples, and royal archives have left behind relics, such as the famous Code of Hammurabi, discovered there, and inscriptions in both Elamite and Akkadian, offering clues to a civilization that shaped the course of ancient history. Yet for all the tangible evidence, much about the Elamites remains elusive. Despite their influence on the neighboring empires, their own written records are sparse, and much of what we know comes from foreign sources, often from their enemies. The Elamite language, for example, was once thought to be an isolated tongue, unrelated to any other language family. But recent research has begun to suggest possible links to the Dravidian languages of India, though no definitive connections have been made. What might this reveal about the Elamites' origins or their contacts with far-flung civilizations? Could it point to an even deeper mystery about their cultural influences, lost over millennia? One of the most perplexing questions is the disappearance of their political power and their subsequent obscurity in the annals of history. The end of Elam's independence seems to be tied to the military campaigns of the Persian king, Cyrus the Great, who conquered the region in 539 BCE. Yet, the Elamite civilization did not vanish overnight. In fact, evidence suggests a slow integration rather than a violent end. What caused this gradual dissolution? Was it simply the weight of imperial conquest, or was there something deeper at play? Some scholars speculate that environmental factors may have played a role in the downfall of Elam. The region's dependence on irrigation for agriculture could have led to soil salinization, rendering large portions of land unproductive. Could the Elamites have experienced a collapse of their agricultural systems that eventually weakened their ability to sustain their cities and population? The region's history is dotted with periods of drought and climate fluctuation, forces beyond the control of even the most advanced societies. Could a series of natural disasters or climate change have set in motion the gradual decline of their civilization? There are also those who point to internal collapse as a possible cause. Elam was a land of constant political upheaval, with frequent changes in leadership and power struggles between rival dynasties. Was this instability a contributing factor to their eventual loss of power? Were there internal divisions that weakened the state from within, making it more vulnerable to external threats? Some argue that it was this very fragility that allowed the Persian Empire to absorb Elam so easily. But perhaps the most intriguing theory is the idea that the Elamites were not completely vanquished, but rather assimilated in a way that caused them to fade from the historical record. Their influence, though diminished, may have persisted in subtle ways within the Persian Empire and even later cultures. Could there be hidden Elamite legacies within the Persian, Parthian, or even later Islamic civilizations, quietly integrated into the cultural fabric without ever being fully acknowledged? Despite centuries of excavation and research, the mystery of the Elamites' disappearance remains unsolved. While their cities stand as silent witnesses to their once great civilization, much of their story has slipped through the cracks of time, leaving behind only fragments of history. What if, buried beneath the dust of centuries, there are still undiscovered clues that could shed light on this ancient enigma? What if the true nature of the Elamite decline is still waiting to be revealed? As we look toward the future, the question lingers. Will the secrets of the Elamite civilization remain forever locked away? Or will time yield its mysteries, allowing us to finally understand the rise and fall of one of the ancient world's most intriguing peoples? Only time will tell. As we continue our journey through the ancient Middle East, we turn our attention to one of the most iconic figures in history, the legendary King Gilgamesh. His name, immortalized in one of the world's oldest surviving works of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh, has intrigued scholars and historians for millennia. Gilgamesh, a semi-divine king of Uruk, ruled around 2700 BCE, and though his story is woven into myth and legend, there are elements of truth that remain buried beneath the sands of time. But what about his final resting place? Where is the tomb of Gilgamesh, and does it hold the key to unlocking the true story of this ancient ruler? The city of Uruk, once one of the most powerful and prosperous cities in ancient Sumer, is said to have been the heart of Gilgamesh's reign. It was here that he performed feats of great strength and courage, battled divine creatures, and sought the secret of eternal life itself. The Epic of Gilgamesh tells the tale of his quest for immortality, driven by the fear of death after the loss of his close companion, Enkidu. But despite his search for eternal life, Gilgamesh's own mortal fate remains as much of a mystery as the tomb that supposedly contains his remains. Ancient texts mention the grand tomb of Gilgamesh, but its exact location remains elusive. Some historians believe that Gilgamesh's final resting place was somewhere near his beloved city of Uruk. Excavations at the ancient site of Uruk have revealed impressive ruins, including the remnants of massive city walls, palaces, and temples. Yet, despite the scale of the site, no definitive tomb has been found that can be definitively linked to the king. Is it possible that Gilgamesh was buried in a location still hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? The search for Gilgamesh's tomb has intrigued archaeologists for decades, and many have proposed possible locations. Some suggest the tomb may lie beneath the Great Ziggurat of Ur, a massive stepped pyramid structure that once served as the religious center of the city. Others speculate that the tomb could be located in the vicinity of the famed Ishtar Gate, another monumental structure connected to Uruk's divine heritage. The legendary king, after all, was a figure of such grandeur that his final resting place would likely be adorned with riches, treasures, and artifacts worthy of his status. But the mystery deepens when we consider that no definitive traces of such a tomb have yet been uncovered. Some researchers believe the tomb may have been deliberately hidden, possibly by those who followed Gilgamesh's reign. Ancient kings often took great pains to protect their tombs from tomb robbers and vandals, and in some cases their burial sites were moved or concealed to prevent desecration. Could it be that Gilgamesh's tomb was hidden so well that it remains undetected, even after thousands of years of excavation? There are other, more speculative theories surrounding the location of Gilgamesh's tomb. Some point to a more fantastical explanation, suggesting that the king's final resting place might not even be on Earth. Could the tomb of Gilgamesh have been placed in a remote or hidden location, such as the deep deserts, a far-off mountain, or perhaps even submerged beneath a body of water, in the belief that such a place would ensure his eternal rest? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the king embarks on a journey to the edges of the world, passing through dark and mysterious realms. Could this journey have symbolized a final resting place that transcends the ordinary world, taking Gilgamesh's legacy to an entirely different dimension? Others point to the possibility that Gilgamesh's tomb could be tied to a great astronomical or sacred site, one that aligned with the stars or the movements of the celestial bodies. The ancient Sumerians were keen astronomers, and their understanding of the night sky was highly advanced for its time. Could it be that the tomb of the great king was hidden in plain sight, concealed within the geometry of the ancient city or a nearby sacred location, where only those with esoteric knowledge could ever hope to uncover it? In the years since the initial discovery of Gilgamesh's legendary epic, scholars have scoured ancient texts and inscriptions for clues. Some scholars have suggested that the king's burial site could be somewhere in the vicinity of the Euphrates River, near the ruins of Ur or Babylon, where other Mesopotamian kings were known to be buried. Yet despite these efforts, no direct evidence of the tomb has ever been found. Could it lie hidden, perhaps still undiscovered beneath the shifting sands of the desert, or within the many layers of ancient cities that have long since been forgotten? The search for Gilgamesh's tomb is not only about uncovering the final resting place of a legendary king, it's also about discovering the truth behind the myths that have surrounded him for millennia. If his tomb is ever found, it could reveal valuable insights into Sumerian culture, religious beliefs, and royal burial practices. More importantly, it would bring us one step closer to understanding the man behind the myth, the true identity of Gilgamesh, and the civilization that gave birth to one of humanity's earliest and most enduring epics. As of today, the tomb of Gilgamesh remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. Despite centuries of searching and countless theories, we have yet to discover the final resting place of this semi-divine king. Is his tomb hidden in a place so remote that it eludes all of our efforts to find it? Or is the truth of his burial lost forever, carried away with the sands of time? One thing is certain: the mystery of Gilgamesh's tomb, like the man himself, endures. As we journey further into the mysteries of the ancient Middle East, we find ourselves drawn to a set of inscriptions, etched into stone, hidden in the desert winds, and still resisting full understanding after centuries of study. These inscriptions, known as the Sabaean inscriptions, are relics of a lost civilization that once thrived in the southern Arabian Peninsula, in a region that today encompasses parts of Yemen and Saudi Arabia. The kingdom of Saba, also known as Sheba, holds a fascinating and enigmatic place in history, not only because of its connections to the Bible and ancient texts, but also because of the mysterious language and writing system that the Sabaeans used. The Sabaeans were an ancient people who left behind an astonishing array of inscriptions, inscribed on stones, walls, and other monuments, that remain among the oldest and most cryptic examples of writing in the Arabian Peninsula. These inscriptions, written in a script known as Musnad, are primarily found in the highlands of Yemen, where once stunning temples, palaces, and urban centers dotted the landscape. The Sabaeans were remarkable for their architectural achievements, complex irrigation systems, and impressive trade networks, which connected them to far-reaching regions including Egypt, Mesopotamia, and even India. Yet, it is their written legacy that continues to stir both fascination and frustration among scholars. To the untrained eye, the Musnad script may appear to be just another example of an ancient alphabet, composed of geometric shapes and symbols that seem to stand like silent sentinels, guarding secrets from a distant past. But the language that these inscriptions convey is far more elusive. For centuries, scholars have worked to decipher the meaning behind the Sabaean script, yet many of these inscriptions remain untranslated, holding their secrets tight. One of the most puzzling aspects of these inscriptions is the absence of key figures or events. While many ancient civilizations were quick to record the names of rulers, monumental events, or divine decrees, the Sabaeans seem to have left behind a wealth of texts that are deeply abstract. They are filled with references to gods, but with no clear indication of who the rulers were or what specific events they were commemorating. The inscriptions, though numerous, are often fragmented, making it difficult to connect the dots of their history. Why did the Sabaeans leave such a vast, yet cryptic record of their society? What was the purpose of their inscriptions, and why have they remained so resistant to full understanding? One theory suggests that the Sabaean inscriptions were used primarily for religious or ceremonial purposes. The kingdom of Saba, like many ancient civilizations, was deeply religious, and its people worshipped a pantheon of gods whose names appear again and again in the inscriptions. These gods were associated with natural forces like the sun, moon, and stars, and the inscriptions seem to convey divine messages, prayers, or offerings to these deities. Some scholars speculate that the inscriptions may have been used to record rituals or events of religious significance, possibly in the hopes of ensuring divine favor. Yet, with so many inscriptions remaining untranslated, we can only guess as to their exact purpose and meaning. Another theory posits that the Sabaean inscriptions could have been a form of political propaganda, or a tool of governance. After all, the Sabaean kingdom was wealthy thanks to its control of key trade routes, especially the incense trade, which linked the Arabian Peninsula to Egypt and the Mediterranean. It is conceivable that these inscriptions were used to bolster the power of the ruling class or to assert their divine right to govern. The inscriptions may have been created to affirm the king's authority, using religious and cultural symbols to legitimize their rule. But if this was the case, why do we see so few names of kings or records of significant events? And why are so many of the inscriptions devoid of the usual markers of royal power that we see in other ancient cultures? The mystery deepens when we consider the possibility that the Sabaean script might have encoded information that we have yet to fully understand. Could it be that the Sabaeans were using a form of writing that was more complex than we realize? Perhaps one that relied on symbolism, metaphor, or even a hidden code? This idea has been proposed by some scholars who argue that certain words or symbols in the Musnad script may represent ideas or concepts that go beyond simple language. If true, the Sabaeans may have left behind an intricate web of meaning that modern researchers have yet to unravel. Could these inscriptions be more than just written words? Might they contain hidden knowledge or messages that are meant to be unlocked by future generations? Adding another layer of intrigue, there are some who suggest that the Sabaean inscriptions may not even represent a single, unified language. Though scholars have largely agreed that the Musnad script is related to other South Arabian scripts, There are those who speculate that the Sabaeans may have employed multiple forms of writing, perhaps even writing systems that were not entirely native to the region. Some believe that the Sabaeans may have had contact with other advanced cultures, such as the Egyptians or the Mesopotamians, and that these interactions could have influenced their script in ways that we have yet to fully understand. Did the Sabaeans adopt elements from other writing systems, or did they develop their own language in isolation? The answers may lie in the yet-to-be decoded inscriptions, waiting for someone to unlock their full meaning. Despite decades of research and numerous discoveries, the true significance of the Sabaean inscriptions remains elusive. What were they trying to communicate, and why have they resisted translation for so long? As we look to the future, the question remains, are these inscriptions merely relics of a lost civilization, or do they hold keys to understanding an ancient society that may have been far more advanced than we realize? The Sabaean script may be one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world, its meanings still hidden, waiting to be discovered. The desert winds may one day reveal their secrets. But until then, the inscriptions remain a silent puzzle, reminding us of the depths of the past we have yet to fully comprehend. As we continue our journey through the ancient mysteries of the Middle East, we turn our attention to a city that, for thousands of years, lay hidden beneath the desert sands, Ebla. Located in modern-day Syria near the border with Turkey, the site of Ebla is one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. It was here, amid the ruins of what was once a thriving metropolis, that researchers uncovered a treasure trove of ancient texts, revealing a civilization that flourished at the heart of the ancient world long before the rise of Babylon, Assyria, or even Egypt. The city of Ebla was rediscovered in the 1970s during excavations led by the Italian archaeologist Paolo Mattia. What he and his team uncovered stunned the archaeological world. Beneath the tell of Ebla, they found the remains of a city that spanned over 50 hectares and had been inhabited for over a millennium, from the mid-3rd millennium BCE until its destruction in the 23rd century BCE. At its height, Ebla was a major power in the ancient Near East, controlling trade routes that linked Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Egypt. Yet, despite its significance, Ebla had never been mentioned in the surviving records of other ancient civilizations, raising questions about why it had been largely forgotten by history. Among the most remarkable finds at Ebla were thousands of clay tablets inscribed in a script that was initially unknown to scholars. These tablets, now referred to as the Eblaite texts, revealed a wealth of information about the city's political, economic, and religious life. The texts include administrative records, legal documents, diplomatic correspondence, and even what appear to be literary works. They provide a glimpse into the sophisticated bureaucracy and organization of the Eblaite kingdom, as well as its complex relationships with neighboring states. But while the discovery of the Eblaite tablets was a groundbreaking achievement, it also introduced new mysteries. Despite the wealth of information contained in the texts, their full meaning remains a puzzle. The Eblaite script, though related to the Akkadian cuneiform script, is still not fully deciphered. While some progress has been made in understanding its syntax and vocabulary, many of the texts remain cryptic, especially when it comes to their deeper cultural and historical significance. What did the people of Ebla hope to convey in these texts? And why, despite their apparent importance, did the city vanish from the historical record for so long? One of the most intriguing aspects of the Eblaite tablets is the discovery of references to long-lost cities and kingdoms that were previously unknown. Among these are mentions of Sumerian cities, such as Ur and Nippur, and references to regions like Canaan and even Egypt. The texts suggest that Ebla was not only aware of these distant lands, but was actively engaged in trade, diplomacy, and even military conflict with them. How could a city in the far north of Mesopotamia have such a wide-reaching influence? Was Ebla a more powerful force than previously thought? with connections to some of the most famous civilizations of the ancient world. Further complicating the mystery is the sudden and violent destruction of Ebla. Sometime around 2300 BCE, the city was abandoned and burned to the ground, leaving behind a haunting silence. What caused this abrupt end to a flourishing civilization? Some scholars believe that the fall of Ebla was the result of an invasion by a foreign power, possibly from the Akkadian Empire. The Akkadian king Sargon, whose empire stretched across much of Mesopotamia, is often suggested as the likely culprit. Could Ebla, once a rival power, have been swallowed up by the expansionist ambitions of Sargon? Or did the destruction of Ebla have another cause, perhaps a natural disaster or internal collapse? The mystery deepens when we consider the possibility that Ebla's destruction was not just the result of a single catastrophic event, but a gradual decline. Could the city have suffered from economic or political instability long before its final destruction? The absence of later mentions of Ebla in the records of other ancient civilizations raises questions about whether its destruction marked the end of a broader cultural and political shift in the region. Was Ebla's fall part of a larger pattern of collapse affecting the ancient world at the time, one that we still don't fully understand? Another perplexing feature of the Eblite tablets is the existence of a large archive containing royal correspondence, including letters between Ebla's king and other rulers. Among these letters are references to long-lost rulers and dynasties, some of which seem to have faded completely from the historical record. The names of kings and kingdoms appear in the tablets, but these figures are often unknown to us, as though they had been erased from the history books. Why would such important records have disappeared from later records? Was it deliberate? And if so, who would have had the power to erase them from history? There is also the enigmatic presence of a mysterious and elusive figure known as Adad Apla Edina, who appears in some of the royal correspondence. This individual is described as a king or ruler with unusual influence, yet nothing else is known about him from other sources. Could this person have played a critical role in the history of Ebla, perhaps even its downfall? Was he a key figure in the city's complex political landscape, or is his role simply another fragment of a larger, forgotten history? In addition to the political and historical puzzles, the religious life of Ebla remains shrouded in mystery. The Eblite texts reveal the names of several gods and goddesses, many of whom are also known from other ancient Near Eastern cultures. But the religious practices and beliefs of the Eblites are poorly understood. What did their gods represent? How did they influence the daily lives of the people? And why are there no detailed records of royal religious ceremonies, unlike those of other contemporary civilizations? The mystery of Ebla is one that continues to captivate archaeologists, historians, and linguists alike. Though much has been uncovered about the city's impressive achievements, much remains hidden. The secrets of the Eblaite civilization, its origins, its connections to other ancient cultures, and its sudden disappearance are still waiting to be uncovered. Could new excavations reveal further answers? Or will the city of Ebla continue to remain locked in the sands of time, its mysteries teasing us from the edges of our understanding? The answers may yet lie beneath the rubble, waiting for a future generation to unlock them. As we continue our exploration of the ancient world, we now turn our attention to one of the most powerful and enigmatic empires of the Late Bronze Age, the Hittites. Nestled in the heart of Anatolia, in what is modern-day Turkey, the Hittite Empire once stretched across a vast territory that spanned from the Aegean coast to the depths of Mesopotamia. But while the Hittites were undeniably influential, their role in the catastrophic collapse of the Bronze Age, a collapse that saw the fall of nearly every great civilization in the Mediterranean and Near East, remains shrouded in mystery. The Hittite capital, Hattusa, stood as a symbol of the empire's power and sophistication. Located in the central Anatolian plateau, Hattusa was a fortified city, surrounded by massive stone walls and towering gates, with impressive temples and palaces that reflected the grandeur of Hittite culture. It was here, among the ruins of the ancient city, that scholars unearthed a trove of cuneiform tablets written in the Hittite language. These texts offer invaluable insights into Hittite governance, religion, and diplomacy, providing a window into the empire's complex social fabric. The Hittites, known for their military prowess and strategic alliances, were one of the key players in the political drama of the ancient Near East. They were contemporaries of the Egyptians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, and their interactions with these civilizations were often tense, marked by both warfare and diplomacy. The most famous event in Hittite history, the Battle of Kadesh, fought around 1274 BCE between the forces of Hittite King Ramses II of Egypt, was one of the largest chariot battles ever fought and a defining moment in the struggle for control of the eastern Mediterranean. The resulting peace treaty, one of the earliest known in history, signified the complex relationships that defined the region. However, despite their military strength and diplomatic cunning, the Hittites were not immune to the forces of instability that brought down other ancient empires. In the late 13th century BCE, a series of interconnected disasters, ranging from invasions and internal rebellions to natural disasters, shook the foundations of the Hittite Empire. The fall of the Hittite capital, Hattusa, in 1200 BCE, marks one of the most enigmatic episodes in ancient history. Why did the once mighty Hittite Empire, which had dominated much of Anatolia and northern Syria, crumble so suddenly and violently? Mainstream historical accounts suggest that the fall of the Hittite Empire was part of a broader, region-wide collapse that affected nearly every major Bronze Age civilization. This collapse, often referred to as the Bronze Age collapse, saw the destruction or abandonment of cities, the collapse of trade networks, and the eventual fragmentation of once powerful empires. In this context, the Hittites were no exception, with their fall appearing to be the result of a perfect storm of factors: internal strife, invasions by the so-called Sea Peoples, and economic decline. However, despite this plausible narrative, the exact role that the Hittites played in the collapse remains a matter of ongoing debate. One theory posits that the Hittites were both victims and instigators of the Bronze Age collapse. As a powerful empire at the crossroads of several key trade routes, the Hittites were deeply involved in the interconnected economies of the ancient world. When their empire began to fracture, it is believed that they played a significant role in destabilizing the region. Some scholars suggest that the Hittites, desperate to maintain their control over vital resources, may have contributed to the destruction of neighboring civilizations, further escalating tensions in an already volatile region. The sacking of cities, the destruction of trade networks, and the collapse of political structures may have set off a domino effect, leading to the widespread collapse of the ancient world. But could the Hittites have been more than just another empire that fell victim to the chaos of the time? Was there a more deliberate role they played in the Bronze Age collapse? Some fringe theories propose that the Hittites, facing growing pressure from invaders like the Sea Peoples, may have sought to weaken their rivals before their inevitable downfall. Did the Hittites, in their final years, initiate campaigns against other ancient powers in a bid to ensure that no one would emerge from the collapse stronger than them? The evidence for such a theory is scant, but the idea remains a tantalizing possibility. More mysteriously, there are those who suggest that the Hittite downfall may have been connected to something far more intangible than warfare or invasion, a form of societal collapse driven by internal factors. Could the decline of the Hittite Empire have been caused by a shift in political or religious beliefs, or by a profound cultural upheaval? The Hittites were known for their religious practices, which included a pantheon of gods and goddesses who were central to their worldview. But what if these religious and cultural systems began to fracture in the face of unprecedented pressures? Could a spiritual or ideological crisis have hastened the disintegration of the empire? Some researchers have even suggested that the collapse may have been partially influenced by a breakdown in leadership, with kings and elites unable to maintain control over the vast territories of the empire. Adding another layer of complexity to the mystery is the role of the Sea Peoples. These mysterious invaders, whose origins remain uncertain, are often linked to the broader collapse of Bronze Age civilizations. The Sea Peoples are thought to have been a confederation of maritime groups who launched raids along the Mediterranean coast, destroying cities and weakening empires in their wake. It is possible that the Hittites were directly affected by these invasions, either through direct confrontation or as part of the broader disruption they caused. Were the Sea Peoples the final blow to the Hittite Empire, or did they simply capitalize on an already fragile situation? As we reflect on the fall of the Hittite Empire, we are left with more questions than answers. Was the Hittite collapse a singular event, or part of a larger, more complex set of interwoven crises? How did this powerful empire, which had once dominated the ancient world, fall so swiftly into ruin? And what role did the Hittites themselves play in the unraveling of the Bronze Age? Perhaps, like so many ancient mysteries, the answers remain hidden beneath the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered. The role of the Hittites in the collapse of the Bronze Age remains an enigma, one that may never be fully solved. But as we continue our search for answers, we are reminded that history is not just a series of facts, but a narrative that is still unfolding, with mysteries yet to be revealed. As we journey deeper into the heart of ancient mysteries, we find ourselves at one of the most puzzling and lesser-known monuments of the ancient world, the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam. Nestled in the rugged cliffs of the Zagros Mountains in Iran, this enigmatic figure stands quietly among the tombs and ancient reliefs of one of the greatest empires of antiquity, the Achaemenid Persians. Naqsh-e Rostam, a site that also features the royal tombs of Darius the Great and his successors, is home to intricate rock carvings that tell stories of power, conquest, and divine authority. Yet it is the colossal, weathered Sphinx carved into the mountain face that has captured the curiosity of archaeologists, historians, and visitors for centuries. Unlike the more famous Egyptian Sphinx, this one does not sit majestically before a pyramid or temple, but rather in a remote and almost secretive location. Its mere presence in this Persian landscape raises questions. Why was it created, and what does it signify? What hidden purpose could such a structure serve in a civilization that already boasted grand palaces, intricate sculptures, and towering monuments? The Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam is not as imposing as its Egyptian counterpart, nor is it a solitary figure. Rather, it is part of a larger, much more complex ensemble of carvings and inscriptions that speak to the greatness of the Achaemenid kings. The figure itself, carved in low relief, resembles a winged creature with the body of a lion and the head of a man, traits commonly seen in Mesopotamian and Persian iconography. However, its unique features set it apart. The figure is positioned on a massive pedestal, its wings spread in a way that is reminiscent of ancient Near Eastern motifs, yet it remains an oddity, one that doesn't align perfectly with other symbols from the Achaemenid period. What is most striking about the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam is its location. Situated high above the valley floor, it seems almost deliberately hidden from the casual observer. The choice of location is curious. Why carve such a monumental figure into a cliffside rather than in a more accessible central location? Some scholars speculate that the Sphinx's position was symbolic, serving as a guardian to the tombs of the Achaemenid kings below, but this remains uncertain. Was this a mark of power, a representation of the divine protection over the royal necropolis, or something deeper? Adding to the mystery is the fact that this figure may not have been created by the Achaemenids at all. Radiating from this enigma is a theory that the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam could be a relic of an older civilization. Some researchers suggest that the figure may date back to the Elamite period, long before the rise of the Persian Empire. The Elamites, who controlled much of the region before the Achaemenids, had a rich history of their own, and their influence on the cultural and religious practices of the region cannot be overstated. Could the Sphinx, with its mysterious features, have been an artifact of an earlier, forgotten culture, one that the Persians inherited and adapted to their own needs? There is also the unsettling possibility that the Sphinx's role was not merely decorative or symbolic, but involved something far more ritualistic. Some researchers have pointed to the surrounding tombs and the sheer scale of the monument as indicators that it could have been part of a larger religious or ceremonial complex. The presence of other carvings, such as the famous reliefs depicting kings like Darius and Xerxes, suggests a connection between the tombs and the religious iconography of the time. Could the Sphinx have been intended as a guide or a protector for the deceased? Was it, in some way, linked to the ancient rituals of death and rebirth that permeated the Persian worldview? What further complicates our understanding of the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam is the absence of clear inscriptions that could provide insight into its meaning. Unlike the nearby tombs, which are adorned with inscriptions in Old Persian, Elamite, and Akkadian, the Sphinx stands in silence. This lack of written context leaves us to speculate about its origins and purpose. Was it simply a piece of royal propaganda, a monument to the power and divinity of the kings, or did it serve a more esoteric purpose, perhaps linked to Persian religious beliefs that we can only begin to grasp? One of the more intriguing and speculative theories posits that the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam could be linked to a much larger tradition of Sphinx-like figures that spanned across the ancient Near East. These figures, sometimes seen as representations of mythical creatures or divine guardians, appear in various cultures from Mesopotamia to Egypt. The idea that the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam is part of this broader transcultural tradition raises more questions than answers. Did the Achaemenid Persians see themselves as inheritors of this ancient tradition, or were they attempting to carve out their own unique identity by adapting older symbols? Moreover, the question of its age remains unresolved. While it is generally agreed that the Sphinx is a product of the Achaemenid period, the possibility that it could predate the Persians by centuries adds another layer of intrigue. Could the figure be older than the inscriptions that surround it? If so, what does that tell us about the ancient cultures that once inhabited this area? Was this region a crossroads of ancient civilizations, each leaving its mark on the landscape and its culture? As we stand before the Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam, it is impossible not to feel the weight of history pressing down. The figure, weathered by millennia of wind and sand, continues to watch over the tombs of ancient kings, its true purpose still unknown. The mysteries of its origin, its symbolism, and its role in the Achaemenid Empire continue to elude us, leaving us to wonder, what deeper meanings could this silent guardian hold, and what secrets may still lie hidden beneath the sands of time? The Sphinx of Naqsh-e Rostam is a monument to the unknown, one that calls us to look deeper, to seek the truths that may be buried beneath centuries of history. Perhaps the answers are closer than we think, or perhaps they will remain lost to us forever. Only time will tell. Nestled deep within the harsh, sun-scorched deserts of the Arabian Peninsula, there once thrived a powerful yet enigmatic civilization, the kingdom of Qedar. The ancient city of Qedar, believed to have been located near the modern-day borders of Saudi Arabia and Jordan, stands as a silent testament to a culture whose influence stretched across the heart of the ancient Near East. Yet, despite its once flourishing trade routes, its extensive wealth, and its strategic military prowess, the fate of the Qedarites remains shrouded in mystery. The people of Qedar, known as the Qedarites, were a Semitic-speaking nomadic tribe whose kingdom flourished between the 9th and 5th centuries BCE. They were experts in controlling vital trade routes that linked the Mediterranean world to the Arabian and Mesopotamian empires. The kingdom's location, straddling the crossroads of several ancient cultures, made it a center of trade, wealth, and power. Yet, despite this prominence, little remains of the Qedarites' legacy. They left behind no grand palaces or monumental structures like those of their contemporaries, the Egyptians, Assyrians, or Persians. What remains are scattered inscriptions, a few archaeological finds, and a shadowy, almost forgotten place in history. The most significant and puzzling aspect of Qedar's history is its disappearance. Historical records, both from the Assyrians and the Hebrews, mention the kingdom of Qedar frequently, yet none offer a clear picture of how the kingdom ultimately met its end. The Bible, for instance, refers to the Qedarites as both enemies and allies, marking their significant role in the ancient world. Assyrian records tell of the Qedarites' frequent conflicts with Assyria, but also describe them as formidable traders and military adversaries. Yet, by the time the Neo-Assyrian Empire began its aggressive expansion in the 8th century BCE, the Qedarites seemed to vanish from the historical record almost entirely. The mystery deepens when one examines the physical remnants of Qedarite culture. Archaeologists have uncovered a few inscriptions written in the Qedarite dialect, found primarily in the desert regions of the Arabian Peninsula. But these texts are frustratingly sparse, offering little in the way of a detailed historical narrative. These inscriptions, written in an ancient alphabet similar to that of the Arameans, have provided invaluable linguistic insights into the Qedarites' culture, but they don't answer the crucial question of why such a once powerful kingdom faded from the pages of history so abruptly. One of the most significant clues lies in the archaeological site of Qedar's capital, which is believed to have been located at the city of Ulai, near the ancient trading city of Petra. Ulai was strategically positioned on trade routes that brought frankincense, myrrh, and spices to the Mediterranean world. However, the city of Ulai was abandoned long before the rise of Islam in the 7th century CE. Why did the Qedarites, who had once controlled such an important economic hub, abandon their capital and retreat into the desert? Did they fall victim to the overwhelming forces of Assyrian imperialism, or was there an internal collapse that led to their disappearance? Or could it be that they merged with other nomadic tribes, leaving behind no distinct traces of their existence? As the Assyrians and Babylonians expanded their reach, Qedar's position in the region became increasingly precarious. The Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser III, in the 8th century BCE, launched military campaigns across the region, targeting various nomadic tribes, including the Qedarites. The Assyrians were notorious for their brutal military tactics, and their expansion could have easily disrupted the delicate balance of power in the region. But even as the Assyrian Empire sought to conquer the Arabian Peninsula, no conclusive evidence has surfaced to suggest that Qedar fell directly to Assyrian forces. Could the Qedarites have been assimilated into other cultures without a direct military defeat? Or did they simply disappear from history due to their relocation to remote desert areas where they were no longer of strategic importance? One of the more intriguing and speculative theories revolves around the idea that the Qedarites did not vanish entirely, but rather transitioned into a new cultural identity. This idea suggests that the Qedarites may have gradually merged with the Nabatean people, a nomadic group that eventually founded the prosperous city of Petra. The Nabateans, known for their skill in water management and their thriving trade networks, could have been the successors to the Qedarites, absorbing aspects of their culture and their trade routes. This theory raises more questions than answers. Was there a slow cultural and political transformation that led to the blending of these two peoples, Or did the Qedarites simply become a part of the larger caravan culture of the Arabian Peninsula? Another possibility lies in the mysterious mention of the Qedarites in biblical and Assyrian texts, which suggest they may have had a strong spiritual or religious significance in their time. Some scholars propose that the kingdom's dissolution was not purely political or military, but rather tied to a shift in religious or cultural practices. The Qedarites, like many other ancient Semitic tribes, had their own pantheon of gods, and their rituals may have been tied to the land, the desert, and the forces of nature. As the world around them changed, could the Qedarites have experienced a religious crisis that led to their dissolution? Or did they abandon their ancient beliefs in favor of the dominant powers of the region, such as the Assyrians or Babylonians, and lose their distinct identity in the process? Perhaps the most perplexing aspect of Qedar's fate is that it may never be fully understood. The lack of substantial archaeological evidence, combined with the sparse historical references to the kingdom, creates a historical gap that is difficult to bridge. Did the Qedarites leave behind any trace of their once great civilization, or is their legacy forever buried beneath the shifting sands of the Arabian desert? Could they have disappeared quietly into obscurity, leaving behind only faint memories in the pages of ancient texts? Or did they succumb to the pressures of empire, never to recover from the losses they suffered? What remains clear, however, is that the kingdom of Qedar was a vital and influential part of the ancient world. Their disappearance is a poignant reminder of how entire civilizations can vanish from history, leaving behind only the faintest of echoes in the archaeological record. The Qedarites may have faded from the map, but their legacy, like many others in the annals of ancient history, continues to captivate the imagination, urging us to search for the truth behind their mysterious fate. Amidst the blistering heat of the Rub al-Khali, the largest continuous sand desert in the world, lies a city so elusive that it has been called the Atlantis of the Sands, the lost city of Ubar. A place described in ancient texts as a thriving metropolis of wealth and power, Ubar has fascinated explorers, historians, and archaeologists for centuries. And yet, despite numerous efforts, its exact location remains an enigma, hidden somewhere beneath the vast sea of shifting dunes. For centuries, stories of Ubar have persisted, passed down through the ages. In the Quran, the city is referred to as the Iram of the Pillars, a place of unimaginable luxury and divine punishment. According to the legend, the people of Ubar were prosperous beyond measure but grew proud and corrupt. In their arrogance, they angered the gods who, in a cataclysmic event, caused the city to disappear beneath the sands, swallowed whole by the desert. But was Ubar simply a myth, a piece of folklore passed down through generations, or was it a real physical city whose existence was lost to time? Some believe that Ubar was a thriving center of trade, its riches derived from its position on ancient caravan routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the lands of the Mediterranean, India, and Africa. The city's wealth, according to some accounts, came not just from trade, but from its control over the valuable frankincense trade, an aromatic resin that was highly prized by ancient cultures. Historically, Ubar is often linked to the ancient kingdom of Sheba, a civilization famed for its opulence and strategic trade routes. The Queen of Sheba, as the story goes, visited King Solomon of Israel, and was so impressed by his wisdom and wealth that she offered him gifts of gold and spices. Some speculate that Ubar was the legendary city mentioned in these tales, a city whose riches were unmatched by anything known to the ancient world. But despite the vivid descriptions in ancient texts, tangible evidence of Ubar's existence remained elusive for centuries. Archaeologists have searched for its remains in the deserts of Oman and Yemen, areas thought to have been at the heart of the ancient trade networks that connected Arabia to the Mediterranean and beyond. Some have pointed to the presence of the ancient city of Shisar in Oman, a site that shows signs of having once been a flourishing trade center with an extensive system of wells and irrigation. Could this be the fabled city of Ubar? Yet, while some sites in Oman have yielded artifacts suggesting a rich and ancient civilization, none seem to match the grand scale described in the myths. The absence of conclusive evidence raises important questions. Did Ubar exist as an urban center, or was it simply a collection of smaller settlements that thrived for a time before disappearing? Could the city have been more of a symbolic representation of the wealth and power of the region rather than an actual, physical city that was suddenly lost? The most widely accepted theory today is that Ubar may have indeed been a real city, but one that was lost due to natural disaster rather than divine retribution. One possibility is that Ubar's destruction was the result of the collapse of a massive underground cavern or a catastrophic flood. The desert is notorious for its hidden underground water channels, and some experts have speculated that the city was built atop an unstable aquifer that, when it collapsed, caused the ground to sink, taking the city with it. This idea is supported by the discovery of an ancient sinkhole near the site of Shisar, though it remains uncertain whether this is related to Ubar or simply another geological feature of the desert landscape. Other theories suggest that Ubar's disappearance was not due to a natural catastrophe, but the result of human intervention. Some believe that Ubar may have fallen into decline as its trade routes shifted and the once thriving city was abandoned. The desert, after all, has a way of reclaiming what once was. The shifting sands of the Rub al-Khali could easily have engulfed a city that was once grand, leaving only traces of its existence buried deep in the sand. But there is another possibility, one that borders on the speculative. Some have suggested that Ubar, as described in ancient texts, was not just a city of wealth, but a place of great technological and mystical knowledge, perhaps even linked to the lost technologies of Atlantis. These theories, while often dismissed by mainstream historians, continue to attract attention. Could Ubar have possessed knowledge or artifacts that allowed it to thrive in the unforgiving desert, only to vanish inexplicably? Or could the city's disappearance have been connected to forces beyond the understanding of ancient civilizations? The truth remains elusive. Despite modern satellite technology, which has helped locate potential ancient sites buried beneath the sand, no definitive evidence of Ubar's existence has been found. The search for the lost city of Ubar continues to this day, with new expeditions and technologies constantly adding pieces to the puzzle. Each new discovery raises more questions than answers, keeping the mystery alive and as tantalizing as ever. The tale of Ubar, whether myth or history, is a reminder of the fragility of civilizations and the power of nature. In the vast, inhospitable expanse of the Rub al-Khali, the remains of this lost city, if they exist, are hidden beneath miles of shifting sand. Perhaps the answer to the mystery of Ubar is not lost in time, but buried beneath the sands, waiting to be uncovered by those with the will and the technology to find it. So, as we look to the horizon, the question remains: will we ever uncover the truth of the lost city of Ubar? Or is it a story that will continue to elude us, forever a part of the legend, never to be fully realized? Perhaps only time and the sands of the desert hold the answer. In the heart of ancient Mesopotamia, where the mighty Euphrates River winds its way through the modern-day region of southern Iraq, lies one of the most enigmatic archaeological sites of the ancient world, the royal tombs of Ur. This sprawling necropolis, which dates back to around 2500 BCE, is one of the most significant discoveries of the Sumerian civilization. Among the tombs, the grave of King Tutankhamun may be more famous, but the tombs of Ur offer their own unique mysteries, particularly one that has fascinated historians and archaeologists for generations: the curse. The discovery of these royal tombs in the early 20th century brought with it a wave of both awe and unease. Sir Leonard Woolley, The British archaeologist who led the excavation in the 1920s unearthed a wealth of treasures: ornate jewelry, gold statues, finely crafted weapons, and a stunning array of artifacts that offered a glimpse into the opulence and grandeur of Sumerian society. The tombs themselves, constructed with meticulous precision, were designed to honor the powerful rulers who once governed this ancient city, a city that had long been a cradle of civilization. But it wasn't just the treasures or the artistry of these tombs that captured the imagination of the world. It was the story of the so-called Curse of Ur, a series of mysterious deaths and strange occurrences that followed the excavation of these tombs. While there was no written record of an actual curse in the ancient texts of Mesopotamia, the eerie coincidences surrounding the opening of these graves have led some to wonder if there may be something more to the legend. It all began with the tomb of Queen Pu-Abi, one of the most lavishly buried royals discovered in the necropolis. Her tomb was adorned with dazzling jewelry and a headdress of gold, but it was the tomb's eerie contents, especially the presence of human sacrifices, that left a lasting impression. Woolley's team found dozens of human bodies, many of them seemingly arranged in a ritualistic manner, suggesting that the ancient Sumerians believed in an afterlife that required a great deal of tribute, even in death. What startled many, though, was the discovery of what appeared to be sacrificial victims, seemingly killed to accompany the queen in the afterlife. Could the tombs themselves and the ancient burial practices have been a symbol of dark power? As Woolley's team unearthed these tombs, a series of strange events followed, setting the stage for what would become the so-called Curse of Ur. Within months of the excavations, Woolley himself became seriously ill, a condition that plagued him for years. Other members of the team also fell victim to sudden ailments, with some even dying under mysterious circumstances. Perhaps most notably, a few months after the excavation, Sir Woolley's patron, the wealthy Englishman Sir Henry Wellcome, died unexpectedly. These occurrences fueled speculation that the long-forgotten royal tombs of Ur were somehow responsible for these tragedies. The idea of a curse associated with tombs is not new, of course. From Egypt to the Inca Empire, history is littered with stories of mysterious deaths following the discovery of ancient graves. Yet, the curse of the royal tombs of Ur is particularly intriguing, because it seems to align with the dark and foreboding nature of Mesopotamian beliefs. Was the curse simply a superstition, brought on by the trauma and reverence that often accompany the opening of ancient graves? Or could there be something more to the legend, something that science and archaeology have yet to uncover? It's important to note that many experts dismiss the idea of an actual curse. Modern scholars point to the harsh realities of the excavation process, which was often fraught with danger. The tombs of Ur, for instance, were buried deep in the earth and had not been disturbed for millennia. The diseases of the region, the stress of the excavation, and the potential for exposure to ancient bacteria or toxins could all have contributed to the illnesses and deaths that followed the dig. Could a deadly ancient microorganism have survived in the sealed tombs, waiting for the moment when it was disturbed? Or were the deaths simply a coincidence, a series of unfortunate events tied to the stress of working in such a treacherous environment? Yet there are still those who believe the curse is real, even in the absence of conclusive evidence. Some suggest that the ancient Sumerians, with their deep spiritual beliefs, could have endowed their tombs with a kind of supernatural power, perhaps in an attempt to protect their final resting places from thieves and grave robbers. If the tombs were indeed believed to be sites of divine power, could disturbing them have unleashed forces beyond human comprehension? Others have suggested that the curse might not be a supernatural phenomenon at all, but could instead be symbolic of the ancient people's understanding of life and death. The Sumerians had a complex view of the afterlife, which was believed to be a dark, shadowy existence, one in which the spirits of the dead required care and offerings to avoid bringing misfortune upon the living. It's possible that the curse, if it did exist, might have been more of a cultural warning, a way of showing respect for the dead and acknowledging the power of the ancient tombs. But regardless of whether or not one believes in the supernatural aspect of the curse, there's no denying that the royal tombs of Ur are a source of continuing fascination. The treasures, the intricacy of the tombs, and the disturbing possibility that they hold secrets still unknown to us all contribute to the allure of this ancient site. As time passes, the question remains: was the so-called curse simply a matter of coincidence? Or does the truth of Ur's mysteries lie hidden in the shadows of history, waiting to be uncovered? Whatever the answer may be, the royal tombs of Ur remain a tantalizing reminder of the ancient world's enduring mysteries, one that continues to capture our imaginations, just as it did those who first unearthed it. In the ancient city of Babylon, once the jewel of the Mesopotamian world, the night sky was not just a source of awe and wonder. It was a cosmic map, a divinely orchestrated puzzle. The Babylonians, known for their remarkable advances in science and mathematics, believed that the stars, planets, and other celestial bodies were not just distant lights in the sky, but symbols of divine order. They meticulously charted the movements of the heavens, recording their observations on clay tablets that have, for millennia, fascinated scholars and stargazers alike. Among these tablets, the Babylonian astronomical tablets stand out as some of the most enigmatic and extraordinary relics of ancient science. Found in various parts of the ancient city, these clay fragments date back over 2,000 years and contain a wealth of detailed astronomical data. They describe the motions of the planets, the phases of the moon, and even track celestial events with precision that would seem advanced for their time. But despite their detailed nature, there is still much we don't understand about these tablets and the knowledge they contain. The Babylonians were not just passive observers of the sky. They were meticulous recorders, able to predict the cycles of the moon, the rising and setting of planets, and the occurrence of eclipses. These tablets seem to reveal that the Babylonians were able to calculate the length of the solar year with impressive accuracy, often measuring it to within a fraction of a day. Some of the calculations are so accurate that they rival modern astronomical data, leading many to wonder, how did they accomplish this, so long before the advent of modern telescopes and advanced instruments? One of the most perplexing aspects of the Babylonian astronomical tablets is the apparent use of a mathematical system that transcends simple observation. Some scholars have speculated that the Babylonians were using a sophisticated form of mathematical astronomy, relying on complex algorithms that seemed to predict the movement of the stars with uncanny precision. But where did this knowledge come from? Was it purely the result of centuries of careful observation? Or did the Babylonians possess a deeper understanding of the cosmos, one that we have yet to fully grasp? The tablets contain references to many celestial phenomena, including the movements of Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, which the Babylonians called wandering stars. In fact, their fascination with Venus, known as the morning star or the evening star, was so great that they created detailed records of its appearances and disappearances, often associating it with the gods and their influence over earthly affairs. One of the most remarkable tablets, known as the Venus Tablet of Amisaduqa, records the cycles of Venus over a period of 21 years, providing one of the oldest known examples of planetary motion being tracked and predicted. Yet it is not just the accuracy of their astronomical records that intrigues us, but also the methods by which the Babylonians arrived at their conclusions. The concept of epicycles, the idea that planets move in small circular orbits upon larger circular ones, appears to have been known to them long before it became a central concept in Greek astronomy some 1,500 years later. Did the Babylonians somehow arrive at this idea independently, or is it possible that they were influenced by lost or undiscovered knowledge passed down from ancient civilizations, perhaps from even earlier cultures like the Sumerians, or from sources beyond the ancient world? Some scholars have even ventured to suggest that the Babylonians may have had knowledge of astronomical phenomena that would only be rediscovered by modern science many centuries later. For example, some of the data contained in the tablets seems to indicate that the Babylonians may have been aware of the phenomenon of axial precession, the gradual shift in the orientation of the Earth's axis, long before it was formally documented in the 2nd century BCE by the Greek astronomer Hipparchus. How could a civilization, without the benefit of modern tools, have noticed such subtle and long-term astronomical changes? As the centuries passed, Babylon fell into ruin, and much of its ancient knowledge was lost to time. But the tablets survived, buried in the sands of Mesopotamia, where they would later be unearthed by archaeologists. To this day, there are still many unanswered questions about these ancient records. How much of the knowledge they contain is based on pure observation, and how much may have been derived from sources unknown to us? Did the Babylonians possess some form of astronomical insight that modern science is only beginning to understand? Adding to the mystery is the fact that, while these tablets reveal astonishing knowledge, they also contain numerous gaps and ambiguities. Some of the records seem to be incomplete or coded in ways that we have yet to fully decipher. Are these gaps simply a result of the fragmentary nature of the tablets, or do they suggest that there are aspects of Babylonian astronomy that have been deliberately obscured or forgotten? Could there be hidden knowledge within these texts, waiting for the right key to unlock it? Perhaps the most intriguing question is whether the Babylonians were simply sophisticated stargazers, or whether they were actually tapping into something deeper, an ancient, almost mystical understanding of the cosmos. There are those who believe that the Babylonian astronomical knowledge may have been more than just practical. It may have been tied to religious beliefs or esoteric traditions, with the heavens serving as a divine blueprint for the fate of empires and individuals alike. Could their meticulous tracking of the stars have been a way to interpret the will of the gods? In the end, the Babylonian astronomical tablets remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of ancient science. Despite the impressive knowledge they contain, the origin and true purpose of these records remain elusive. What we do know is that they offer a glimpse into a civilization whose understanding of the universe was far more sophisticated than we once believed. And as we continue to study these ancient texts, we are left to wonder, what other secrets might they still hold? Secrets that could reshape our understanding of both the past and the cosmos itself. In the heart of the ancient city of Babylon, a monument once rose, dazzling in both its scale and artistry, the Ishtar Gate. Built around 575 BCE under the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II, this monumental structure was part of a grandiose entrance to the city, designed not just to impress, but to proclaim the power and divine favor of Babylon. Standing at nearly 40 feet tall and adorned with intricate reliefs of lions, dragons, and bulls, symbols of gods and kings, the Ishtar Gate was a stunning testament to Babylonian engineering and artistry. But beyond its architectural grandeur, the gate holds within it a mystery that has puzzled scholars and archaeologists for centuries. The gate's construction was a masterpiece of glazed brickwork, its vivid blue hue derived from the use of lapis lazuli, a semi-precious stone that was once so highly prized it was considered a symbol of the heavens themselves. As you stand before it, whether in its reconstructed form at the Pergamon Museum in Berlin or in the descriptions left behind by ancient travelers, it is impossible not to feel the weight of its significance. The lions etched into its walls, representing the goddess Ishtar's power and ferocity, seem to still guard the ancient city in a way that is almost palpable, as if the gate itself holds more than just the passage to a city. It guards a secret. What makes the Ishtar Gate so intriguing, however, is not just its beauty or its role as a city gate. It is the curious connection between the gate and the very concept of divine power. As one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, Babylon was considered to be at the center of the ancient world's spiritual and political power. The Ishtar Gate, as part of the grand processional way, was meant to awe and inspire all who passed through it, especially the priests, pilgrims, and conquerors who came to pay homage to the gods. Yet there is an unsettling question that remains unanswered. What was the true purpose of the Ishtar Gate, and what role did it play in the rituals and ceremonies of ancient Babylon? The gate's significance lies in its symbolism as much as in its physical structure. The creatures depicted on the walls, lions, bulls, and dragons, were not simply artistic representations. They were sacred symbols tied to Babylon's pantheon of gods. The lion, for example, was associated with Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, while the dragon, or Mushushu, represented the god Marduk. In essence, the gate wasn't just a passageway. It was a gateway to the divine, a place where earthly power met the will of the gods. Yet, some scholars suggest that the symbolism of the gate runs deeper, hinting at a more mystical or esoteric purpose. Could the Ishtar Gate have been a site of ancient rites or ceremonies designed to connect the earthly realm with higher, unseen forces? In fact, some researchers have proposed that the gate's construction was influenced by ancient astronomical or astrological beliefs. Babylon was a civilization deeply invested in the movements of the stars, the planets, and the cycles of time. The city itself was laid out with great precision, aligned in a way that corresponded to the stars and constellations that were central to Babylonian cosmology. Could the Ishtar Gate have been aligned with certain celestial events, such as the rising of a particular star or the solstices and equinoxes, thus playing a role in ritual ceremonies tied to the heavens? There are also those who suggest that the gate's true purpose might have been more aligned with the political power of the time. Nebuchadnezzar II, a king renowned for his military conquests and his ambition to elevate Babylon to its peak, may have used the gate not only as a symbol of divine protection, but as a representation of his own power. The gate, after all, was located at the end of the processional way, a grand avenue that led from the city's outskirts to the Temple of Marduk. This avenue was the route taken by victorious kings and foreign dignitaries alike, and it is believed that Nebuchadnezzar himself paraded through the gate in grand ceremonies, offering sacrifices and showing off the spoils of war. Was the Ishtar Gate a physical manifestation of Babylon's might and divine favor, or did it serve a more esoteric function, one that remains hidden in the mists of time? Adding another layer of intrigue is the mystery surrounding the gate's fate. After the fall of Babylon to the Persian Empire in 539 BCE, the Ishtar Gate was eventually abandoned, but it was not lost to time entirely. Archaeologists in the early 20th century unearthed its remains, leading to its reconstruction in Berlin, where it now stands as one of the most iconic symbols of ancient Mesopotamian culture. Yet, despite its rediscovery and preservation, the full meaning and purpose of the Ishtar Gate remain elusive. Why was such a monumental structure built in the first place? Was it simply a display of power, or did it serve a greater, more mysterious purpose? Some researchers have speculated that the gate may have been a conduit to the divine, perhaps allowing priests to communicate with the gods, or to perform rituals that bridged the gap between the celestial and the earthly realms. Others suggest that its purpose was more pragmatic, acting as a symbol of Babylon's unrivaled power in the ancient world. an image of strength meant to intimidate and awe any who dared to enter. Still, the fact remains that we may never know the true purpose behind the Ishtar Gate. While it is clear that the gate was a remarkable achievement in architecture and art, its deeper spiritual or mystical significance is something that continues to elude us. Was it simply a testament to the grandeur of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, or did it serve as a link between the human and the divine, a threshold through which both kings and commoners passed, but never truly understood? As we stand before its remnants in museums and in our imaginations, we are left to wonder, what secrets does the Ishtar Gate still hold? And in the quiet, deep recesses of history, what knowledge might still lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered? High in the fertile Bekaa Valley of modern-day Lebanon, nestled among the ancient ruins of Baalbek, lies one of the most perplexing and awe-inspiring archaeological sites of the ancient world. Here, in a region long associated with the gods, stands the Temple of Jupiter, a colossal monument built during the Roman Empire. But it is not the grandeur of the temple that captures the imagination of archaeologists and visitors alike. It is the stone blocks beneath it, some of which weigh upwards of 800 tons, that have remained a source of mystery for centuries. Known as the Trilithon, these three massive stones are so enormous that their size challenges the very limits of human construction capabilities. The largest of these blocks, known as the Stone of the South, measures approximately 66 feet long, 14 feet wide, and 12 feet high. Their sheer size and weight defy conventional explanation, and their transportation and placement continue to stump engineers and historians. How, with the technology of the ancient world, were these immense stones moved and set into place with such precision? The mystery of Baalbek's giant stones begins with the sheer scale of the construction. The Romans were renowned for their architectural achievements, but even their advanced engineering techniques seem almost inadequate for the task at hand. Some of the stones are so massive that they would be difficult to move even with today's machinery. Yet the question remains, how were these enormous blocks lifted and positioned over 2,000 years ago, long before the advent of cranes, pulleys, or modern construction equipment? Was it simply the result of sheer manpower and primitive tools, or is there something more to the story? Scholars have proposed various theories, but none fully explain the mystery. Some believe that the Romans themselves used complex systems of ramps and levers to transport the stones, perhaps employing tens of thousands of workers to carry out the task. Others suggest that the site may have been constructed even earlier than the Roman Empire, possibly by the Phoenicians or another ancient civilization with knowledge and technology far beyond what we typically associate with the time. But how could civilizations long before the Romans have engineered such an ambitious feat? Adding to the mystery is the fact that the stones are not just massive, they are perfectly cut and aligned. The precision with which they were shaped and placed speaks to a level of craftsmanship that is beyond what is commonly expected for ancient constructions. The faces of the stones are smooth, and the joints between them are so tight that it is impossible to insert even a sheet of paper between them. Such precision was not common in ancient construction, even in the most advanced of cultures, and it raises the question, were the builders simply extraordinarily skilled, or were they working with tools and techniques lost to history? Some researchers have ventured into more speculative territory, suggesting that the stones of Baalbek may have been created or moved by forces beyond human understanding. There are those who believe that the sheer size and weight of the stones imply that they could have been constructed or transported using technologies that have since been forgotten, or that they may have been manipulated by means we have yet to comprehend, perhaps even involving some form of ancient levitation or anti-gravity technology. While these ideas are far from mainstream, they add to the sense of mystery that surrounds the site. In addition to the questions surrounding the construction of the stones themselves, the purpose of Baalbek also raises intriguing questions. The site was dedicated to the god Jupiter, and later to Bacchus and Venus. But was it simply a place of worship, or did it serve a deeper, more enigmatic purpose? Some theorists speculate that Baalbek may have been a center of ancient astronomical observation, with the layout of the site aligning with celestial bodies or cosmic events. Was the placement of the stones related to the stars, the moon, or other cosmic forces, suggesting that the site was more than just a temple? It was a gateway to the heavens? Others propose that Baalbek was more than just a religious center. It may have been an ancient power source, harnessing forces of the earth or the cosmos in ways we do not fully understand. The enormous stones, placed with such care and precision, may have been part of an energy system that the ancient builders knew how to control. If this were true, what kind of energy were they tapping into? And how did they harness it? Could Baalbek have been more than a temple? It could have been a machine, a device with an unknown purpose, designed to draw power from the earth or from the sky. What is clear, however, is that the mystery of Baalbek's giant stones is far from solved. Despite the many theories put forward, none have definitively explained how the stones were transported, shaped, or placed. The site itself continues to elude modern understanding. What is certain is that Baalbek is not just an architectural marvel. It is a place where the ancient world intersects with the unknown. As we study the remains of Baalbek, we are forced to confront our own assumptions about ancient civilizations and their capabilities. Could it be that the ancients possessed knowledge and technologies far beyond what we imagine? Or perhaps there are secrets at Baalbek that we are simply not yet capable of understanding. In the end, the giant stone blocks of Baalbek remain a silent testament to a mystery that has endured for millennia. As the stones stand in quiet defiance of modern engineering, we are left to wonder, what was the true purpose of Baalbek, and what knowledge or power did the ancients tap into when they constructed this colossal site? The answers may lie buried in time, waiting to be uncovered, or perhaps some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved forever. At the height of its power, the Akkadian Empire stood as one of the greatest civilizations the world had ever known. Centered in Mesopotamia, it spanned from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean and from the Zagros Mountains to the Arabian Desert. Founded by Sargon the Great around 2334 BCE, the Akkadian Empire was the first to unify the various city-states of Mesopotamia under a single ruler, laying the foundation for much of the political and cultural landscape of the ancient Near East. Under Sargon's successors, the empire flourished, its armies expanded their reach, and its influence spread far and wide. Yet, despite its immense power, the Akkadian Empire's collapse was as sudden and mysterious as its rise. In a span of just a few decades, this once mighty civilization seemed to disappear from the historical stage. No single event can be pinpointed as the cause of the Akkadian collapse. Instead, it was a confluence of factors, many of which remain a subject of intense debate among scholars. The absence of clear records only adds to the mystery. How could such a powerful empire simply vanish? One of the most widely accepted theories is that the Akkadian Empire's fall was the result of a series of devastating climatic changes. Evidence from ancient climate data, such as the analysis of tree rings and sediment cores, suggests that around the time of the Akkadian collapse, the region underwent a dramatic shift toward much drier conditions. The once fertile land of Mesopotamia, which had been the cradle of civilization, became increasingly inhospitable. Rivers that had sustained agriculture dwindled, and the water sources that the Akkadians relied upon were no longer reliable. Crops failed, famine set in, and the empire's ability to sustain its vast population was severely diminished. However, climate change alone does not explain the rapid and dramatic fall of the Akkadian Empire. There were other forces at play, forces that to this day remain only partially understood. Some scholars point to a series of invasions by nomadic groups from the steppes to the north and east. These so-called barbarian raids disrupted trade routes, destabilized borders, and contributed to internal divisions. The empire's vast network of city-states, once united under Sargon's strong leadership, may have fractured under the strain of external pressure and internal dissent. As evidence of these pressures, the Akkadian royal inscriptions from the period begin to reflect an increasingly desperate tone. Inscriptions from Sargon's successors, particularly his grandson Naram-Sin, mention divine wrath and plague, hinting at the possible role of disease in weakening the empire. The Akkadians, who had once seen themselves as favored by the gods, suddenly found themselves vulnerable to forces beyond their control, both natural and supernatural. Could disease have played a more significant role in the collapse than we realize? And if so, what sort of disease could have swept through the empire with such devastating effect? More intriguing still is the possibility that the Akkadian Empire's fall was tied to a deeper, more existential crisis. Some researchers have suggested that the Akkadians may have experienced a collapse not only of their political structure, but also of their very identity. The Akkadian language, once a symbol of unity and power, began to fade from use. The Akkadian script, which had been the language of administration and literature, was gradually replaced by Sumerian, the language of the older city-states. Did the Akkadians lose faith in their ability to maintain control, leading to a loss of cultural cohesion? Was the collapse, in some way, a result of a collective spiritual or psychological crisis? The very absence of clear explanations only deepens the mystery of the Akkadian Empire's downfall. Despite the apparent disaster, the civilization's influence lingered long after its collapse. Its language, its art, and its innovations continued to echo through the subsequent cultures of Mesopotamia, particularly in the rise of the Babylonian and Assyrian empires. But why did the Akkadian Empire, which had once seemed so secure, disintegrate so quickly? One of the more speculative theories suggests that the Akkadian collapse may have been tied to an even deeper, more hidden force, a catastrophic event that was never recorded in official annals, but which left an indelible mark on the land. Some have suggested that a natural disaster of biblical proportions, such as a massive flood or an earthquake, could have struck at the heart of the Akkadian Empire. Could an event like this, far more devastating than anything written down in the royal inscriptions, have triggered the collapse? Another theory touches on the religious and cultural tensions of the time. The Akkadian kings, such as Sargon and Naram-Sin, were considered to be divinely chosen. But the empire's sudden decline might have prompted the people to question the legitimacy of their rulers. Were the Akkadian gods angry? Had they withdrawn their favor? The Akkadians, after all, were living at the confluence of several different cultural and religious traditions. Could the decline of one religion have led to the weakening of the political order it had supported? As the centuries passed, the Akkadian Empire became an enigma, its ruins scattered across the landscape of Mesopotamia, its former grandeur now little more than whispers in the desert winds. The written records left behind are scant and fragmented, offering only glimpses of a civilization that once seemed invincible. Today, we are left with more questions than answers. Was the fall of the Akkadian Empire the result of a natural catastrophe, a series of invasions, or a deeper societal unraveling? Or perhaps, as some have speculated, the fall of Akkad was part of a greater unknown cycle of rise and collapse that affected many ancient civilizations. The mystery of the Akkadian collapse continues to captivate and puzzle historians and archaeologists alike. In the end, the Akkadian Empire's fall reminds us that even the mightiest civilizations are vulnerable. As we look at the ruins of Akkad, one of the world's first great empires, we are left to ponder the fate of other empires, past and present, and wonder, what forces are at play that we cannot yet see? In the shadow of Egypt's ancient pyramids, beneath the ever-shifting sands of the desert, lies a wealth of secrets. Secrets that have long captivated the imagination of adventurers, historians, and archaeologists alike. The treasures of the Pharaohs, legendary in their opulence and mystique, are not simply material wealth. They are the echoes of a civilization that believed in the immortality of both kings and their riches. The ancient Egyptians, with their awe-inspiring architecture, their intricate hieroglyphs, and their elaborate burial practices, left behind a trail of treasures that continue to baffle and excite us. Of all the secrets that Egypt holds, perhaps none is more tantalizing than the mysterious fate of these treasures. For while some, like the treasures of Tutankhamun, have been discovered and marveled at, others remain hidden, lost to time, to tomb robbers, or perhaps to forces far more enigmatic than we can yet understand. Among the most famous of these treasures are those belonging to the tombs of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. The tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922 by archaeologist Howard Carter, revealed a glittering array of gold, jewels, and sacred artifacts, including the iconic golden mask that has since become a symbol of Egypt's grandeur. Yet for all its riches, the tomb of Tutankhamun was not the only royal burial to hold such extraordinary treasures. In fact, many of the greatest pharaohs were said to have been buried with treasure beyond comprehension, treasure that has either been lost or remains hidden to this day. One of the most fascinating and elusive of these lost treasures is that of the pharaoh Akhenaten, the enigmatic ruler who radically transformed Egyptian religion and culture by introducing the worship of the sun god Aten. Akhenaten's reign, marked by radical change, was followed by a period of instability and decline. His tomb, located in the Valley of the Kings, was initially thought to be the resting place of a wealth of treasure. But what was found there, if anything, has never been fully revealed. Some scholars suggest that Akhenaten's tomb, much like the tomb of his son Tutankhamun, was looted in antiquity, its treasures scattered or taken. Others believe that Akhenaten's tomb contained relics of a religious revolution that were intentionally hidden, preserved not for their material value, but for their spiritual significance. Then there are the treasures of the so-called lost tomb of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. For centuries, rumors have swirled about the final resting place of Egypt's last queen and her Roman lover. According to ancient texts, Cleopatra and Antony were buried in a tomb designed to mirror the grandeur of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Yet despite extensive searches in and around Alexandria, no definitive location has ever been found. Could their treasures still lie undisturbed, awaiting rediscovery? Or has history concealed them in a place no one has yet thought to look? The search for their tomb is an ongoing mystery, one that seems to be more about what is not known than what is. While these high-profile cases capture the public's imagination, there are lesser-known treasures whose existence has yet to be confirmed, treasures whispered about in texts from antiquity, but never seen by modern eyes. Some of these are said to be buried in undiscovered tombs, waiting to be unearthed, while others may have been hidden away for reasons unknown. The so-called treasures of the Great Pyramid are another source of fascination. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, is believed to have originally housed an incredible wealth of objects intended for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. Yet when the pyramid was first explored, there was no treasure to be found. Some scholars believe that the treasure was looted long ago, but others suggest a more mysterious explanation. Could the treasures of the Great Pyramid have been hidden so well that they remain beyond our reach? Or is it possible that they were never there at all, and that the pyramid was designed to conceal a different, more profound secret altogether? Then there are the mysterious hidden chambers that have been detected in the pyramids through modern scanning technology. In recent years, scans of the Great Pyramid have revealed unusual anomalies, suggesting the presence of hidden chambers or voids within the structure. What might these chambers contain? Could they be hiding treasures? Or are they concealing something more enigmatic, something related to the true purpose of the pyramid, which even today remains shrouded in mystery? These unconfirmed, unexplained findings have led to a slew of theories. Some believe that the pharaoh's treasures were symbolic rather than material, perhaps containing knowledge or artifacts that were considered too dangerous or sacred to be left in the public eye. Others speculate that hidden caches of treasure may have been intentionally concealed by the priests or royal families to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands, or to keep them hidden from those who might seek to misuse them. One particularly intriguing possibility is that the treasures of the pharaohs were not simply physical objects, but were imbued with mystical or spiritual significance. In ancient Egypt, the idea of the afterlife was central to both religion and governance. The tombs and their contents were meant to ensure the pharaoh's safe passage into the next world, and it is possible that these treasures were seen as sacred objects with the power to shape the destiny of the dead king. Could these objects, whether they are tangible or mystical, still hold secrets that have yet to be revealed? The hunt for the lost treasures of Egypt continues to captivate the world, with every new discovery adding another layer to the enigma of the pharaoh's wealth. Some treasures may have been stolen, some may remain buried, and others may have been lost to history entirely. Yet, as long as Egypt's ancient tombs remain unexamined, the possibility of hidden riches, or perhaps hidden knowledge, remains. What could still be concealed beneath the sands? And as modern technology continues to probe Egypt's ancient sites, might we finally unlock the secrets of the pharaoh's treasures? Or will they remain forever lost in the mists of time? Nestled on the ancient hills of northern Syria, just outside the modern city of Aleppo, lies the Dara Temple, an archaeological site that has long been a source of fascination for historians, archaeologists, and mystics alike. Though it was first discovered in the early 1950s, the temple's enigmatic carvings continue to puzzle scholars and fuel debates about its purpose and origins. The Dara Temple, believed to date back to the 9th century BCE, is a striking example of ancient Near Eastern religious architecture. Its design mirrors the grand temples of Mesopotamia and Anatolia, yet there is something uniquely mysterious about its carvings, which have led many to wonder, who built this temple, and for what purpose? Was it the work of a local, forgotten civilization, or was it influenced by a lost culture whose influence stretched across the region? One of the most striking features of Dara is the series of deeply intricate stone reliefs that adorn the temple's walls. These carvings, which have survived for over 2 millennia, depict a wide range of figures, gods, mythical creatures, and everyday people. Yet it is the larger-than-life depictions of human feet that continue to captivate and confound. At the entrance of the temple, the foot impressions, massive, intricately carved depictions of human feet, stand as a perplexing testament to the structure's significance. Some have speculated that these enormous feet might be symbolic, perhaps representing the god of the temple or a figure of divine power. However, no definitive answer has been reached. The feet are unusually large, almost too large for a mere human. Could they be a literal representation of a deity's steps, perhaps suggesting that the god walked upon the earth? Or might these feet be part of a much older tradition, one that predates even the temple itself, and whose meaning has been lost to time? As we move further into the temple's ruins, the carvings become even more enigmatic. Depictions of winged beings, often seen in ancient Mesopotamian art, are woven into the stone like guardians, watching over those who would enter. But what makes these particular figures stand out is their striking resemblance to later depictions of angels in Abrahamic traditions. Could these winged beings have had a role in ancient Middle Eastern religious practices, long before they became associated with the monotheistic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? Or is it possible that these figures were an influence on these later traditions, a distant memory of a time when multiple gods and mythologies vied for influence over the ancient world? In addition to these otherworldly figures, The walls of the temple also depict scenes of battles, rituals, and gods sitting on thrones. However, none of these carvings are entirely understood. They appear to be part of a religious narrative, but the specifics of the story remain elusive. The rituals portrayed are unfamiliar, and the gods, while recognizable in some respects, do not seem to match any of the known deities of the period. Were these gods part of a regional pantheon, unique to Ain Dara and its people, or did they belong to a now-forgotten culture that spanned across the broader region? Another mystery surrounding the Ain Dara temple is its sudden destruction. The temple, once a place of grandeur and significance, was utterly abandoned and burned down during a period of intense political turmoil. While some historical records attribute its fall to a series of invasions, the cause remains uncertain. What could have led to the destruction of such a powerful religious center, and why was it abandoned so abruptly? Was it a sign of the collapse of an entire civilization, or a deliberate act of erasure by a conquering force? Could the carvings themselves hold clues, offering a hidden narrative about the fall of Ain Dara, which has yet to be deciphered? Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of Ain Dara is the possibility that its carvings hold a deeper, more profound meaning, one that goes beyond the scope of ancient art and religion. Some have speculated that the carvings represent a form of early writing, one that predates the cuneiform of Mesopotamia or the hieroglyphs of Egypt. Could these carvings be an early attempt at recording history, a form of communication that was never fully understood or preserved? Or are they simply a symbolic, artistic expression of the religious beliefs of the time? There are also those who wonder if the carvings may have served a purpose beyond the physical realm. Some have suggested that the temple itself might have been a sort of portal, a threshold between the world of the living and the divine. The carvings, with their otherworldly imagery and larger-than-life depictions of gods and mythical beings, could be viewed as an attempt to bridge the gap between the earthly and the celestial. Did the temple's builders believe that through these carvings, they could invite the gods into their world, allowing them to walk among mortals, guiding and protecting them? While these questions remain unanswered, one thing is clear. The mystery of the Ain Dara temple and its carvings continues to intrigue scholars and explorers alike. No single theory has been able to fully explain the meaning behind the carvings, nor has the identity of the people who built the temple been definitively established. Was the temple part of a larger religious movement, a grand narrative that spanned across ancient Mesopotamia and Anatolia? Or was it the work of a more localized civilization, whose beliefs and culture were uniquely their own? As modern technology continues to reveal new insights into ancient structures like Ain Dara, we are left with more questions than answers. What secrets still lie hidden beneath the weathered stones of the temple? And as we piece together the fragments of its past, might we uncover a story that challenges everything we thought we knew about the ancient world? The mystery of the Ain Dara temple, with its elusive carvings and unanswered questions, remains an enigma, waiting for us to uncover its hidden truths. The sun-drenched plains of ancient Mesopotamia hold more than just the crumbled remnants of once great cities. They hide stories of civilizations that rose to power and then seemingly vanished without a trace. Among the many enigmatic chapters of this vast history, one of the most perplexing is the disappearance of the Amorite tribes. Once a dominant force in the region, these people have left behind only scattered references and a deep sense of mystery about their fate. The Amorites were a Semitic-speaking people who arrived in Mesopotamia sometime during the early 2nd millennium BCE. Initially, they were seen as nomadic, wandering herders. But over the centuries, they gradually assimilated into the fabric of Mesopotamian society. By the time of the Akkadian Empire's collapse, the Amorites had established themselves as key players in the region, founding important cities like Babylon, Mari, and even some areas of Assyria. In fact, the most famous Amorite ruler, Hammurabi, is known for his iconic code of laws, which has had a lasting influence on legal systems around the world. However, despite their significance in ancient history, the fate of the Amorite tribes remains shrouded in mystery. How did a people who had such a profound impact on the region simply vanish? What happened to the Amorites after the height of their power? The first hints of their disappearance began to emerge during the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire in the 9th century BCE. As Assyria expanded, it absorbed many of the Amorite territories, and references to the Amorites in historical records became increasingly rare. Some historians suggest that the Amorites were either conquered or displaced by the rising powers of Assyria and Babylon, but this explanation seems too simplistic. While some Amorite cities fell, others, such as Babylon, flourished under their rule. The question remains: if the Amorites were defeated by Assyria, why did they leave so little evidence behind? Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of the Amorite disappearance is the gap in written records. The Amorites were known for their skill in trade, warfare, and diplomacy, yet their own records are scant. Aside from the famous Hammurabi, very few Amorite rulers left behind inscriptions, and even fewer Amorite cities have yielded significant archaeological evidence of their culture. Was this intentional? Did the Amorites purposefully erase their own history, leaving behind only fragments of their once great civilization? One particularly curious theory revolves around the relationship between the Amorites and the gods they worshipped. The Amorites were deeply religious, and their pantheon included deities shared with other Mesopotamian cultures, like the storm god Odad. Some scholars suggest that their sudden disappearance may have been linked to a religious or spiritual crisis, perhaps even a dramatic change in belief systems or a sudden shift in their relationship with their gods. In a region rife with divine politics and cults, a dramatic loss of faith or the emergence of a new god could have had catastrophic consequences for a society. Others point to the possibility of climate change as a contributing factor. The ancient Near East was deeply dependent on the rivers and irrigation systems that crisscrossed the land. Shifting climates or devastating floods might have disrupted the delicate balance of agriculture, causing widespread famine and social collapse. Could a natural disaster, like a catastrophic flood, have contributed to the sudden disbandment of Amorite society, leaving behind only their name in historical records? While these explanations are compelling, they do not account for the complete disappearance of the Amorites. Ancient history is full of accounts of conquest, assimilation, and cultural transformation, yet no such comprehensive record exists for the Amorites. Some researchers have suggested that the Amorites might have been absorbed into neighboring cultures so thoroughly that their distinct identity was lost over time. But why would a people so influential in the rise of Babylon and Mari so quietly disappear from the pages of history? Perhaps the most tantalizing theory is that the Amorites did not disappear at all. They simply went underground. Could the Amorites have become so integrated into the political and religious structures of their conquerors that they simply ceased to exist as a distinct tribe? Or might they have retreated into the deserts, leaving behind their cities and temples, while continuing to influence the region from the shadows? Some speculate that the Amorites, like other ancient groups, could have hidden their culture or language to avoid persecution or destruction by more powerful empires. If this is the case, what did they leave behind in the remnants of the ancient world? Could their mysterious disappearance actually be a cover for their continued existence in some form, waiting to be uncovered by future generations? As we trace the ancient footprints of the Amorites across Mesopotamia, we find ourselves staring at a void, one that reveals just as much as it conceals. Their story, or rather the lack of a complete story, challenges our understanding of the ancient world. The Amorites might have been absorbed into the larger tapestry of Mesopotamian civilization, but the mystery of their disappearance persists. Their power, Their cities and their influence seem to evaporate, leaving only traces of their once glorious past. And so, as we reflect on their disappearance, we are left with questions that refuse to be answered. Did the Amorites truly vanish, or are they still out there, hidden within the fabric of time, their legacy lingering just beneath the surface of ancient history? Only time, and perhaps further discoveries, will reveal whether the Amorites are lost to history, or if their secrets are still waiting to be unearthed. In the heart of the ancient Mesopotamian landscape, a towering structure rises from the sand, a monument to a civilization long past, yet still brimming with unanswered questions. The Ziggurat of Ur, once a majestic pyramid-like temple, stands in the desolate plains of modern-day southern Iraq, a silent sentinel to the mysteries of the ancient world. Its imposing presence offers a glimpse into a forgotten time, where the gods were believed to descend from the heavens to walk among mortals. Built around the 21st century BCE by the Sumerian king Ur-Nammu, the Ziggurat of Ur was dedicated to the moon god Nana, the patron deity of the city. The structure, originally an immense step pyramid, was designed to bring its priests closer to the divine. With its grand staircase leading to the heavens, it was not just a temple, but a symbol of mankind's connection to the gods. Standing at nearly 100 feet high in its prime, the ziggurat was a monumental achievement in Sumerian architecture, an expression of their advanced engineering and spiritual devotion. Yet, despite its grandeur, the ziggurat's true purpose and the precise role it played in the daily lives of the people who built it remain elusive. Why was such a colossal structure built? What exactly did the Sumerians believe it represented? And why, after centuries of worship, did it fall into neglect and ruin? The mainstream narrative suggests that the ziggurat was an essential part of the city's religious life. It served as a center for worship, where priests would perform rituals and sacrifices to appease Nana. The ziggurat was also likely the site of royal ceremonies, with kings and their retinues making pilgrimages to the temple to honor the moon god. From the top of the ziggurat, one could imagine the priests gazing out over the vast city of Ur, their eyes scanning the horizon for signs from the heavens. But beyond these widely accepted theories, the true nature of the ziggurat and the deeper meaning it held for the Sumerians remains unclear. Was it simply a temple, or could it have been something more? Some have suggested that the ziggurat's design, with its massive size and elevated platform, was meant to facilitate a direct connection between the earthly and the divine realms. The Ziggurat of Ur may have been seen not just as a religious center, but as a portal, a physical manifestation of the belief that the gods resided in the heavens and that their influence could be brought down to earth through human rituals. Perhaps most intriguing, however, is the mystery surrounding the construction of the ziggurat itself. The Sumerians, with their limited technology by today's standards, were able to erect a structure of such scale and complexity. The exact methods they used to move and place the massive mud bricks remain unclear. While scholars have speculated on the use of ramps and other ancient construction techniques, the logistical challenges of building such a monument still seem daunting. Could the Sumerians have had access to technologies or techniques that have been lost to time? Or were they simply far more resourceful than we give them credit for? Adding to the mystery is the ziggurat's sudden decline. After its initial construction, the Ziggurat of Ur underwent several phases of renovation and expansion. However, after the fall of Ur to invaders and the eventual decline of the Sumerian civilization, the ziggurat fell into disrepair. It is unclear what caused the temple's abandonment, but some historians have suggested that the ziggurat may have been a victim of political upheaval. As the power dynamics of Mesopotamia shifted, the once great city of Ur was gradually overtaken by more powerful kingdoms. Could the religious importance of the ziggurat have diminished as the political landscape changed? Another theory revolves around the possibility that the decline of the ziggurat was linked to a broader cultural shift. As new empires and belief systems emerged in Mesopotamia, the old Sumerian gods were gradually replaced by new deities and new forms of worship. Could the ziggurat, with its association to the old Sumerian pantheon, have fallen out of favor in a world that was evolving rapidly both politically and religiously? Yet, despite its decay, the Ziggurat of Ur has endured. Today, the ziggurat stands as a testament to the might of the Sumerians and their belief in the divine. The ruins, though weathered and worn by centuries of neglect, continue to inspire awe in those who stand before them. The remaining structure, though far less imposing than it once was, still evokes a sense of wonder, as though the answers to its true purpose are hidden within its ancient stones, waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps the most perplexing question surrounding the Ziggurat of Ur is why it continues to be such an enduring symbol of the ancient world. Its physical remains speak of a lost civilization, of a people who worshipped the moon and believed their rulers were appointed by the gods. Yet the true role of the ziggurat in the life of the Sumerians remains a mystery. Was it simply a grand temple, or was it something more? A powerful beacon of divine energy, a place where the boundaries between heaven and earth were meant to be crossed. As the winds of time continue to shift the sands of Mesopotamia, the Ziggurat of Ur stands as a quiet reminder of the past, its mysteries still unsolved. And so, we are left to wonder, what secrets does this ancient monument still hold, hidden beneath its weathered stones, waiting for the next generation of explorers to uncover them? The answer may still be out there, waiting to reveal itself. Tucked away in the annals of ancient history, the Kassites remain one of the most enigmatic civilizations of Mesopotamia. Although they ruled over the great kingdom of Babylon for over 400 years, their origins, culture, and even their language are shrouded in mystery. While we often associate Babylon with grand kings like Hammurabi, the Kassites played a crucial yet largely overlooked role in the ancient world. The Kassites are first recorded in Mesopotamian history around 1760 BCE, emerging as an important force after the fall of the old Babylonian Empire. By 1595 BCE, they had taken control of Babylon itself, cementing their position as rulers of the region. Their reign, which lasted until around 1155 BCE, is known for its relative stability and the continuation of Babylonian culture and traditions. But despite their prolonged rule, the Kassites remain a mysterious people. The exact origins of the Kassites are unknown. Some scholars suggest that they came from the Zagros Mountains, located to the east of Mesopotamia, while others propose that they were from the Iranian plateau. Their name, Kassite, is thought to be a later designation, as their own records do not provide any clear self-identification. It is even uncertain whether the Kassites were a single ethnic group or a coalition of tribes that united under one banner. Their language, which is entirely unrelated to Sumerian, Akkadian, or any other known Semitic language, adds to the mystery. Unlike other empires that left behind vast written records, the Kassites left little in terms of written documentation, making it difficult to piece together their story. The Kassites' rise to power is itself a subject of speculation. How did a relatively unknown group from the east manage to overthrow the mighty Babylonians, whose empire had been a dominant force in the region for centuries? Some historians believe that the fall of Babylon was hastened by internal strife and the weakening of its rulers. Others suggest that the Kassites may have taken advantage of external invasions, such as the Hittite incursions, to infiltrate the political vacuum and claim control. But despite their mysterious origins, the Kassites were adept rulers, and their empire is marked by an enduring peace and prosperity that lasted for centuries. Under the Kassites, Babylonian culture continued to flourish. They adopted the Akkadian language, the script of the Babylonians, and many of the customs of their predecessors. The Kassites were also instrumental in preserving Babylon's religious practices, particularly the worship of Marduk, the chief deity of Babylon. They built or renovated many temples, ensuring that the city retained its sacred status. In this sense, the Kassites seem to have been keenly aware of the power of religion and the importance of maintaining the cultural and religious continuity of Babylon. However, despite their long reign, the Kassites remain curiously absent from most of the grand historical narratives of ancient Mesopotamia. In the Babylonian records, the Kassites are often treated as a backdrop to the larger, more dramatic events of the time. Their kings, though mentioned in some historical annals, rarely stand out in the way that Hammurabi or Nebuchadnezzar do. The lack of detailed records from the Kassites themselves has left a gap in our understanding of their civilization. Why did the Kassites leave so little behind? What motivated them to remain so quiet and distant from the grand historical stage? One of the most perplexing aspects of Kassite rule is their apparent lack of monumental achievements. While Babylonian rulers before and after them commissioned grand building projects and left behind detailed records, the Kassites seem to have focused more on maintaining the status quo than on making a mark in history. The absence of the large-scale architectural works or lavish inscriptions typical of other Mesopotamian rulers has led some to question whether the Kassites were more concerned with internal stability than with external glory. Could it be that their modest approach to governance was part of a larger strategy of cultural assimilation and peaceful consolidation? Or was there something more enigmatic at play, a deeper agenda that remains hidden from us? The Kassite dynasty also raises questions about their relationship with other contemporary powers. Although they maintained peaceful relations with the Assyrians to the north and the Elamites to the east, they did not appear to have the same ambition for territorial expansion as other empires in the region. Why, despite their long reign, did the Kassites not seek to extend their influence beyond the borders of Babylon? Did they believe that their power came from maintaining balance rather than conquest? Or perhaps there was another, deeper force at work, guiding their actions and decisions from the shadows? In the absence of conclusive evidence, some have even speculated that the Kassites were not simply a dynastic group, but rather a people with knowledge or capabilities that set them apart from the other civilizations of Mesopotamia. Were they simply pragmatic rulers, or could there have been some ancient wisdom or secret that allowed them to govern Babylon for so long without drawing the attention of their contemporaries? As the centuries passed, the Kassites eventually faded from the historical stage. Their empire gradually weakened, and by the 12th century BCE, they had lost control of Babylon to the invading Elamites. However, the Kassites' influence did not vanish entirely. Some of their cultural traits and practices can be seen in the civilizations that followed, a subtle imprint left behind in the legacy of Mesopotamian history. The true nature of the Kassite dynasty remains one of the great mysteries of ancient Babylon. Their long reign, marked by quiet power and an absence of monumental achievements, continues to intrigue scholars and historians. Were they the passive caretakers of a grand empire, or was there more to their rule, something still hidden in the sands of time? The answers may be buried somewhere beneath the ruins of Babylon, waiting for a discovery that could finally reveal the secrets of the mysterious Kassites. Somewhere in the distant past, across the shimmering waters of the Arabian Gulf, there once existed a kingdom that seems to have vanished without a trace. Dilmun. Mentioned in the ancient Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian texts, this lost civilization was known for its great wealth, strategic location, and mysterious influence. Yet, despite its significance in the ancient world, the exact location of Dilmun has remained elusive, its ruins unaccounted for, its story suspended in the silence of history. The first mention of Dilmun dates back to the Sumerian period, around 3000 BCE, when it was described as a land of abundance and purity. In the ancient texts, Dilmun is often depicted as a paradise, a place where the gods themselves rested and where the mythical hero Gilgamesh sought to find immortality. The people of Dilmun were thought to be favored by the gods, living in peace and prosperity. Archaeological evidence suggests that Dilmun was a center for trade, exchanging goods like copper, pearls, and other luxury items with neighboring cultures, particularly Mesopotamia. But despite its glowing reputation, much of what we know about Dilmun is shrouded in mystery. Was it an actual kingdom, or merely a trading hub, a mythic ideal built by the ancient writers? Inscriptions from the Sumerians describe the land as rich in natural resources, especially copper, which would have been highly valuable in the ancient world. Yet, no direct evidence of Dilmun's existence, no grand city or monumental structures have ever been definitively uncovered, leaving scholars to wonder, where did it go? One of the most intriguing aspects of Dilmun's mystery is its role in the ancient trade networks. Archaeologists have unearthed a wealth of artifacts in the Arabian Peninsula, items that came from as far away as Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, and even Egypt. The presence of Dilmun in these trade routes suggests that it held a central position in the exchange of goods, knowledge, and culture between the East and West. However, the exact geographical location of Dilmun remains debated. The most widely accepted theory places Dilmun in the modern-day Bahrain archipelago, while others suggest it could have been located in parts of eastern Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or even Kuwait. In any case, the region's proximity to key maritime routes could explain its status as a hub of commerce and influence. Yet, while the evidence points to a thriving civilization, there are no grand palaces or towering temples like those of Mesopotamia or Egypt. No impressive ruins have been found that would indicate the might of a once great kingdom. This has led some to question whether Dilmun was not a large, centralized kingdom at all, but instead a collection of smaller settlements bound together by shared trade and religious practices. One of the more fantastical aspects of Dilmun's lore is its association with the myth of the land of the living, as described in the Epic of Gilgamesh. In this story, the hero embarks on a perilous journey to find the immortal flood survivor Utnapishtim, who lives in Dilmun. The land is described as a place untouched by death or decay, a paradise where the gods reside. Could this have been a poetic exaggeration of a real place, or is there a kernel of truth in the myth? The idea of a paradise suggests a land of extraordinary beauty and fertility, but was it also a land of refuge, hidden away from the turmoil of surrounding empires? Some scholars suggest that the Sumerians and other Mesopotamians may have idealized Dilmun, creating a mythic place that represented eternal life or salvation. But if Dilmun was indeed a thriving civilization, its sudden disappearance raises more questions. Why, for example, do we find no definitive archaeological evidence of its fall? The kingdom does not seem to have been destroyed by any natural disaster or external invasion. There are no recorded wars or battles that would account for its collapse, and yet, after its peak, Dilmun fades from the historical record almost entirely. Could it be that Dilmun didn't fall in the traditional sense, but simply faded into obscurity? Perhaps its people assimilated into neighboring cultures, or perhaps they were driven into hiding by unknown forces. If the kingdom's people did leave, where did they go, and what became of the rich trade routes that once passed through the region? Did the people of Dilmun scatter across the ancient world, blending into other civilizations, taking with them their knowledge and leaving only scattered references to their once great kingdom? Speculative theories abound. Some believe that Dilmun's disappearance is linked to environmental changes. Over time, sea levels may have risen, or shifting climate conditions could have altered the landscape, forcing the once prosperous inhabitants to relocate. Others suggest that political upheaval in neighboring Mesopotamia or the rise of other trading powers, such as the Indus Valley, could have contributed to the kingdom's demise. There is even a fringe theory that links Dilmun to Atlantis, a lost civilization that, like Dilmun, left behind only myths and legends. Could the ancient writings about Dilmun be remnants of a far grander story, one that has been altered over millennia? Despite centuries of research and investigation, Dilmun remains an enigma, a kingdom that defies both time and explanation. The evidence we do have, though intriguing, is limited and fragmented. Yet the allure of Dilmun remains potent. What secrets might still lie hidden beneath the sands of the Arabian Peninsula? Perhaps one day, an excavation or a discovery will finally reveal the truth behind this elusive kingdom. Until then, Dilmun stands as one of the great historical mysteries, its true legacy still waiting to be uncovered. In the dim corridors of history, some documents stand as monumental puzzles, texts that challenge our understanding of time, power, and reality itself. One such artifact is the Sumerian King List, a mysterious record that chronicles the reigns of kings from ancient Sumer, dating back to a time before written language as we know it. Yet, buried within its seemingly straightforward listings are anomalies and contradictions that defy explanation, leaving historians and archaeologists scratching their heads even today. The King List is a clay tablet that provides a sequence of rulers, starting with the earliest kings of Sumer, a region that once lay between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. On its surface, the document seems to be a simple royal genealogy, detailing who ruled and for how long. However, the further one delves into the text, the stranger and more enigmatic it becomes. It doesn't just chronicle history, it seems to rewrite it. For starters, the length of reigns recorded in the King List is nothing short of extraordinary. Some kings are said to have ruled for tens of thousands of years. Yes, thousands. One of the most perplexing entries on the list is that of a king named Alulim, who is said to have ruled for 28,800 years. Another figure, Jushur, is credited with a reign lasting 36,000 years. These absurdly long reigns are not isolated anomalies, but are repeated across several entries, suggesting that these ancient kings held power for time spans that defy the biological reality of human life. Given the list's seeming endorsement of near immortality, one must wonder, is this an error, a form of mythological exaggeration, or does it suggest a reality of governance that we simply don't understand? Could these kings represent something beyond the realm of ordinary humans? Perhaps demigods or rulers who wielded an influence so vast that their legacies were immortalized as eternal reigns in the cultural memory of the Sumerians? In addition to the absurdity of these time spans, the King List includes names of rulers whose existence is disputed by archaeology. Some of these kings are completely unknown, with no evidence of their reigns outside of the list itself. How then can we be certain that the King List is a reliable record of historical fact? Some scholars argue that the document could be a combination of fact and myth, a blending of real kings with legendary figures who were either exalted or fabricated to fit the grandeur of the Sumerian civilization. Others speculate that these ancient lists were intentionally embellished as a form of political propaganda, aiming to highlight the uninterrupted supremacy of the Sumerian kingship. Perhaps the most perplexing part of the King List is the way it ties these ancient rulers into a divine narrative. Many of the kings listed appear to have been chosen by the gods themselves, ruling under the divine mandate. In some cases, the reigns of these kings are linked to events that seem to transcend ordinary human history. These kings are described not merely as rulers, but as agents of divine will, upholding cosmic order. What then are we to make of the fact that after a sequence of otherworldly reigns, the king lists seem to shift toward more realistic lengths of rule, though still often extending to several decades? The document's bizarre mix of realism and fantastical elements leads us to a deeper question. Was the Sumerian King List a straightforward historical account, or was it a piece of mythological and political literature designed not to record facts, but to perpetuate an idealized vision of Sumerian rule? Could the list have been an attempt to tie the Sumerian civilization to a divine, uninterrupted lineage, thus cementing its rightful place in the ancient world order? One theory that has emerged in response to the King List suggests that it is a reflection of the cyclical nature of human civilization itself. Perhaps the Sumerians, like many ancient cultures, saw history as a repeating pattern, a series of dynasties or civilizations rising and falling over vast periods of time. The kings listed at the beginning of the King List may have been symbolic representations of ancient rulers whose time spans are less a reflection of their actual rule than of the Sumerians' perception of historical cycles. Some believe that the long reigns could have been an exaggerated attempt to represent eras of peace or prosperity in the region, where rulers were seen as eternal guardians of a golden age. The King List also raises an important question. How much of ancient history was oral history? Was the King List an attempt to codify and preserve stories passed down through generations, transforming folklore into fact? If so, how do we differentiate between historical truth and cultural myth? The fact that the list exists on a clay tablet, rather than being written on a more transient material like papyrus or parchment, gives it an air of permanence. This could suggest that the Sumerians saw it as an unalterable record, a document meant to withstand time, but perhaps it was intended more as a symbol of continuity than an accurate account of history. And still, despite the centuries of research and interpretation, the true meaning of the Sumerian King List remains elusive. Is it simply an artifact of ancient storytelling, a product of a culture that blurred the lines between history and myth? Or does it hold deeper truths, clues to a past so distant that our current understanding of time and kingship may be insufficient to grasp it fully? As we continue to uncover the remnants of ancient civilizations, the Sumerian King List remains one of the most enigmatic texts in human history. The gap between its mythic and historical claims is as vast as the land of Sumer itself, unfathomable, yet deeply compelling. Could there be more hidden in its words than we realize? Or has the passage of time forever obscured its true meaning? Perhaps the answers to these questions are still waiting to be uncovered, lying dormant in the sands of ancient Mesopotamia, hidden within the scrolls of history. Buried deep within the dust and ruins of ancient Mesopotamia lies a treasure trove of letters and documents, each offering a fragment of a long-forgotten world. Among these remains are the Mari letters, a collection of more than 1,000 clay tablets, inscribed with cuneiform script, that once detailed the everyday life, politics, and intrigue of the ancient city of Mari. But while these texts provide valuable insight into the functioning of one of the most important cities of the early Bronze Age, they also raise more questions than answers, leaving us with an enigmatic record of a kingdom that was lost to time. Mari was a thriving urban center located along the Euphrates River in present-day Syria. It flourished around 2300 BCE and was a hub of trade, culture, and politics. Yet, despite its significance, the city disappeared mysteriously from the historical record. Its story might have been lost forever had it not been for the discovery of these extraordinary letters in the 1930s, when an archaeological expedition uncovered the ruins of Mari. These clay tablets, preserved for millennia, have given us an unparalleled glimpse into the world of the ancient Semitic-speaking peoples who once lived there. The Mari letters are not just mundane administrative records or trade contracts. They are far more intriguing. Many of the letters are personal communications between rulers, officials, and distant city-states, giving us a rare glimpse into the political maneuverings and secretive alliances of a forgotten age. The language and tone of the letters reflect the fragility of power in the ancient world, where even the most established rulers could be undone by betrayal, intrigue, and shifting allegiances. One of the most striking features of the Mari letters is their complexity. The correspondence, though written in a straightforward cuneiform script, often seems to carry hidden meanings or allusions. Some of the letters hint at political upheaval, power struggles, and even diplomatic deception, suggesting that the rulers of Mari were navigating a delicate web of alliances and enmities with neighboring kingdoms. What's more, the letters reveal that the Mariotti rulers were highly literate, uncommon for their time, leading some scholars to believe that Mari may have been a center of intellectual and cultural development. However, there are gaps and inconsistencies that challenge our understanding. For example, while the Mari letters provide detailed accounts of daily life and political matters, they are remarkably silent on the more mundane aspects of the city's existence. What do we really know about the economy of Mari, the religious practices of its people, or the role of women in society? What about the identity of the people themselves? Despite the wealth of texts, many questions about the true nature of Mari's civilization remain unanswered. And then there are the letters themselves, which occasionally refer to events, individuals, or places that remain unidentifiable. For instance, one letter mentions a figure known only as Ebla, a high-ranking official whose identity has never been conclusively determined. Was Ebla a real person, a mythic figure, or perhaps a symbol of something greater, a god or a legendary ruler whose story has been lost over time? Such ambiguities raise the possibility that some of the names and events referenced in the Mari letters could be symbolic rather than literal. Furthermore, some of the letters seem to blur the lines between history and mythology. In one particularly puzzling letter, a ruler writes about a dream in which a divine figure appears and advises him to take specific actions in order to secure victory over his enemies. Are these divine omens meant to be understood as supernatural messages, or do they reflect a deeper cultural tendency to intertwine politics with religious beliefs? The Mari letters offer no clear answers, but they open a door to understanding how the ancient people of Mari might have viewed their world, not as separate realms of politics and spirituality, but as interconnected forces guiding their fates. Adding to the mystery is the fact that Mari itself was destroyed and abandoned around 1750 BCE, a fate that has left archaeologists and historians pondering the cause of its downfall. The last known king of Mari, Zimri-Lim, was forced into exile after the city was sacked by the Babylonian king Hammurabi. The question remains, was the destruction of Mari merely the result of shifting political tides, or was there something more significant at play? Something tied to the secretive nature of the Mari letters themselves? Could it be that the Mari letters contain coded messages, perhaps warnings or prophecies about the city's fall? Some scholars suggest that these letters might have been more than just simple records. They may have been a form of ancient diplomacy, a way for rulers to communicate with each other through indirect means. Perhaps the letters, with their veiled meanings and hidden motivations, were an attempt to protect Mari from the growing threats of its enemies, all while maintaining a veneer of diplomatic civility. The destruction of Mari and the disappearance of its civilization leave us with an uncomfortable truth. Many of the mysteries surrounding the Mari letters remain unresolved. Were these letters a true reflection of a lost kingdom, or do they mask something deeper? What can we truly understand about the political and cultural landscape of Mari if so many of its texts are so obscure, filled with references that remain unexplained? As with many ancient mysteries, the more we learn, the more questions emerge. What could the Mari letters reveal about the interplay of myth and history in the ancient world? What role did hidden messages and omens play in the survival or downfall of civilizations? And most importantly, what secrets may still lie buried beneath the ruins of Mari, waiting to be uncovered? Only time, and perhaps further discoveries can answer these questions. Until then, the Mari letters stand as a cryptic and compelling reminder of the complexities of ancient life, offering us a tantalizing glimpse into a lost civilization that still holds many of its secrets close. Nestled among the stark cliffs of the Judean desert, near the shores of the Dead Sea, lies a place of quiet mystery, one that has intrigued archaeologists, historians, and scholars for decades. The Qumran Caves, an austere, almost forgotten location until the 1940s, when a young Bedouin shepherd stumbled upon the first of what would become the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Hidden in these arid caves were hundreds of ancient scrolls, many of them covered in mysterious script. These texts would eventually come to be known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. But the enigma of Qumran doesn't end with the discovery of these priceless manuscripts. In fact, it only deepens the mystery. The Qumran site itself is an ancient settlement, situated in a region that feels as though it exists outside of time. The remains of stone dwellings and a complex system of cisterns dot the landscape, and an air of desolation hangs over the place, interrupted only by the occasional gust of wind. It's as if the land itself is keeping a secret, one that has endured for over 2,000 years. The question that hangs in the air, though, is why such important religious and historical texts were hidden away here, in this arid, inhospitable landscape. What were the people of Qumran hiding, and why? And what do these texts, now painstakingly studied and translated, truly mean for our understanding of ancient religious history? The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of over 900 texts, some of which predate the birth of Christ. Written mostly in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, they contain fragments from nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, as well as apocryphal and sectarian writings that were not included in the traditional canon of Scripture. For scholars, they provide a window into the religious and cultural world of Second Temple Judaism, a world that is largely unknown, yet deeply influential on the development of early Christianity. But the discovery of these scrolls raised more questions than answers. Who wrote them, and why were they hidden in the remote caves of Qumran? The most widely accepted theory is that the scrolls were created by the Essenes, a Jewish sect that lived in isolation from mainstream society. The Essenes are believed to have sought refuge in Qumran, living in communal seclusion in order to maintain their strict religious practices, away from the influence of the Roman Empire and the corrupt priesthood of Jerusalem. Yet even this theory is not without its doubts. Some scholars point to the absence of clear evidence linking the scrolls directly to the Essenes, suggesting that the scrolls may have been hidden by a different group entirely, perhaps a group of Jewish rebels, or even early Christians who sought to preserve their beliefs in the face of persecution. The absence of any definitive inscription naming the group that lived at Qumran leaves us with only speculations, and each theory seems to raise as many questions as it answers. The location of the caves themselves, deep in the desert and far from the centers of Jewish life, adds an eerie layer of intrigue to the story. Why were these sacred texts hidden in such a remote place? Was it a precautionary measure, meant to protect the scrolls from being destroyed by Roman invaders? Or did the people who hid them believe they were preserving something far greater, something that could change the course of history? And then there's the matter of the scrolls themselves. Although many of the texts contained in the Dead Sea Scrolls are religious in nature, others are far more obscure. Some documents speak of mysterious codes, others recount apocalyptic visions, and a few allude to a secret hidden knowledge that has yet to be fully deciphered. Among the most puzzling of these texts is the War Scroll, which describes a final battle between the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. This apocalyptic prophecy suggests a cosmic struggle that seems to have influenced both Jewish and Christian apocalyptic thought, yet the specifics of the war remain unclear. Was it simply a metaphor for spiritual struggle, Or did the authors of the scrolls believe an actual battle was imminent? Another fascinating text is the Temple Scroll, which lays out a vision for a grand, idealized temple, far larger and more elaborate than the one that existed in Jerusalem. Was this merely a religious fantasy, or did the writers of this scroll possess knowledge of something even more profound, something beyond the scope of conventional history? Despite the incredible advances in understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are still many unsolved mysteries surrounding their origin. Could the Essenes or their contemporaries have been more than just religious ascetics? Some suggest that they were keepers of ancient wisdom, possibly even guarding secrets lost to time, secrets that might forever change our understanding of ancient religions, spirituality, and the foundations of Western thought. But perhaps one of the greatest mysteries lies in what remains hidden. Are there still undiscovered caves in the Qumran region, containing further manuscripts or even artifacts that could reveal more about the true nature of this ancient sect and its beliefs? In the decades since the initial discovery, archaeologists have scoured the region, but many feel that the final chapter of this mystery has yet to be written. The Qumran caves continue to stand as silent sentinels over the past, holding within them the answers to questions that humanity has long sought to understand. The scrolls that were discovered offer a glimpse into a world that is both familiar and profoundly alien, a world in which the boundaries between religion, politics, and myth were far more fluid than we might imagine. In the end, the puzzle of the Qumran caves remains an open one. As scholars continue to unravel the texts, new questions arise, urging us to wonder what else might lie hidden beneath the sands. What secrets are still locked away in those remote caves, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? And could the answers to these ancient mysteries hold the key to understanding our own place in the story of civilization? The mystery of the Qumran caves invites us to explore the depths of history, and perhaps to discover truths that have remained hidden for thousands of years. In the heart of ancient Uruk, beneath the searing sun of the Mesopotamian plain, stands the solemn remnants of a temple that once radiated with the divine presence of the goddess Inanna. The Temple of Inanna, one of the most revered sacred sites in Sumerian civilization, still casts an air of mystery over the vast ruins of Uruk. Today, it's but a shadow of its former glory, but in its prime, it was a place of unimaginable power, culture, and spiritual significance. The temple itself is set against the backdrop of the Euphrates River, its towering ziggurat rising into the arid sky like a monument to the gods themselves. The remnants of this once magnificent structure, its bricks, worn and weathered by millennia, are scattered throughout the site, a silent testament to the glory of a bygone age. Walking through the ruins, one can almost hear the echoes of ancient prayers and the hum of incense as it would have filled the air, vibrating with devotion. Inanna, meaning house of heaven, was a center of both religious and political life. Its walls were adorned with murals and inscriptions depicting the grandeur of the gods and the rulers who sought their favor. Inanna, the goddess to whom the temple was dedicated, was no ordinary deity. She was the goddess of love, war, and fertility, a powerful and often capricious figure who shaped the lives of those who worshipped her. To the Sumerians, the Inanna temple was not just a place of worship. It was a conduit between the divine and the human. It was here that the fate of kings was sealed, and here that divine will was believed to be communicated. But despite the extensive archaeological work done at Uruk, many questions remain about the true nature of the Inanna temple and its significance. What was its role in the broader religious and political landscape of Sumer? And, perhaps more intriguingly, what hidden secrets might lie beneath the surface of this sacred space, secrets that have yet to be uncovered? One of the most enigmatic aspects of the temple is its construction. Scholars have long wondered how the Sumerians, without the advanced technology we possess today, were able to build such a grand and intricate structure. The scale of the ziggurat alone suggests a level of engineering mastery that seems beyond the capabilities of the time. The temple complex was massive, covering an area that would have housed a thriving community of priests, scholars, and workers. It had walls that stretched nearly 50 feet in height, and a staircase that would have led the faithful to the heavens themselves. How, with such rudimentary tools, could such a feat of architecture have been accomplished? Some believe that the Sumerians possessed a secret knowledge or lost technology, passed down through generations, that allowed them to build on such an extraordinary scale. Could they have had access to ancient techniques that have since been forgotten, techniques that modern scholars have yet to rediscover? The mystery of Eanna's construction continues to captivate those who study the site, and no definitive answer has been found. Then there is the question of the role of Inanna herself. Ancient texts and myths tell of the goddess's power to shape the world, her descent into the underworld, and her eventual resurrection, themes that echo in the rites conducted within the temple. Was Eanna simply a place of worship, or was it a center of more esoteric practices? Some scholars speculate that the temple may have been a place of hidden knowledge, a sort of spiritual nexus where the boundaries between the earthly and the divine were blurred. The priests of Eanna may have been initiates into a deeper, more mystical understanding of the cosmos, a knowledge that was carefully guarded and passed down only to those deemed worthy. Could these ancient rites have involved secret rituals that have been lost to time? As intriguing as the religious and architectural mysteries of the Eanna temple are, there's a darker, more cryptic aspect to the site that deserves attention: the possibility of hidden treasures. Many ancient temples were known to house vast caches of gold, artifacts, and sacred objects. Some of these treasures were believed to be offerings to the gods, while others may have been intended to secure the favor of Inanna for the rulers of Uruk. Could the Eanna temple, with its importance in Sumerian culture, have held such hidden treasures? And if so, where are they now? Was the wealth of the temple lost to time, or could it still be buried beneath the ruins, awaiting discovery? Furthermore, there is the question of the temple's sudden decline. While it's clear that the Eanna temple once served as the beating heart of Uruk, its significance waned over the centuries. The rise of other city-states, the changing of dynasties, and the eventual decline of Sumerian civilization all played a part in its fading influence. But could there have been other, more mysterious forces at play? Some historians speculate that the temple's fall could have been linked to external threats, perhaps invaders, or internal strife, or even a cultural shift that saw the worship of Inanna and other gods give way to new belief systems. Did the fall of the Eanna temple represent the death of an ancient spiritual order, or was it simply a victim of the inexorable passage of time? As we gaze upon the ruins of Eanna, we are faced with more questions than answers. The grandeur of the temple, the enigmatic rituals performed within its walls, and the elusive nature of its decline suggest that there is far more to the story than we know. What secrets are hidden within the stones of the Eanna temple, waiting to be uncovered? Could the answers lie in the obscure texts of ancient Sumerian writings, or perhaps in the very earth beneath the ruins? As the sands of time continue to erode the once great city of Uruk, one can't help but wonder what lies beneath, waiting to reveal itself. Amid the vast, arid plains of Anatolia, where the winds whisper through the remains of ancient civilizations, lie the crumbled remnants of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient Near East, the Hittites. In the heart of modern-day Turkey, at the archaeological site of Hattusa, the once thriving capital of the Hittite Empire, towering city walls and monumental gateways stand as silent witnesses to a forgotten past. carved into the stones are inscriptions that once told stories of conquests, diplomacy, and power. Yet, despite the grandeur of their legacy, the Hittite Empire vanished from the annals of history nearly 3,000 years ago, its fall remaining shrouded in mystery. At its peak, the Hittite Empire controlled vast territories that stretched from the Aegean coast to the heart of Mesopotamia. Their capital, Hattusa, was a marvel of its time. A city laid out with precision, fortified with towering walls and intricate gateways that seemed to echo the empire's military might. The Hittites were a formidable force, known for their mastery of chariot warfare and their innovative use of iron, which gave them a technological edge over their rivals. They forged powerful alliances, most notably with Egypt, and their empire was a central player in the geopolitical drama of the Late Bronze Age. But then, as abruptly as they had risen, the Hittites disappeared. By the end of the 12th century BCE, their once thriving empire crumbled, leaving behind only ruins and cryptic texts to hint at what might have caused their sudden downfall. The end of the Hittite Empire is often tied to the larger collapse of several civilizations in the eastern Mediterranean, a phenomenon that has become known as the Bronze Age collapse. However, the exact cause of the Hittites' disappearance remains elusive, with no definitive answer emerging from the evidence that survives. What we do know is that the fall of the Hittite Empire was not a singular event. It was part of a broader pattern of upheaval that swept across the ancient world. The 12th century BCE was a time of widespread instability. Several major civilizations, including the Mycenaeans in Greece and the Egyptians in the south, saw their once dominant power wane. But why did the Hittites, in particular, vanish from the historical record so suddenly? Some scholars point to the invasions of the so-called Sea Peoples, a mysterious group of maritime raiders who appear to have wreaked havoc across the eastern Mediterranean during this period. Ancient Egyptian records speak of their devastating incursions, but their exact identity remains a subject of debate. Did these Sea Peoples play a role in the fall of the Hittites? Could they have destroyed Hattusa and other key cities, causing the empire to collapse under the weight of invasion and internal strife? Another possibility is that the Hittite Empire fell victim to a combination of natural disasters and internal disintegration. Evidence suggests that the region experienced prolonged periods of drought and famine during this time, which could have weakened the Hittites' agricultural base. In a society dependent on the fertility of the land, such environmental stresses could have triggered social unrest, leading to the empire's disintegration from within. The collapse of trade routes, the breakdown of diplomatic alliances, and the erosion of political cohesion may have all contributed to the eventual demise of the Hittite state. Yet, there is more to the story than natural disasters and invaders. The Hittites were not a passive civilization. They were skilled diplomats and military tacticians. The Treaty of Kadesh, signed between the Hittite king Hattusili III and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, remains one of the most famous peace treaties in history, marking a rare moment of diplomacy between two powerful empires. So why, after such monumental achievements, did the Hittites collapse so swiftly? Was there something more at play? Some theories suggest that the downfall of the Hittites was related to internal power struggles. The last years of the empire were marked by a series of weak kings and shifting dynastic leadership, leading to political instability. Perhaps the once unified empire became fragmented, with regional powers breaking away and weakening the central authority. In such an environment, rebellion and disorder would have been inevitable, making it easier for invaders, whether human or natural, to bring down what remained. Then there are the more speculative theories. Some suggest that the Hittites, with their advanced knowledge of metallurgy, may have stumbled upon an unknown source of power, a secret that was lost to time when the empire fell. Could the Hittites have possessed a form of knowledge, whether technological or spiritual, that disappeared along with their empire? Could their sudden collapse have been linked to the loss of this mysterious knowledge? The thought of an advanced civilization vanishing into the mists of history, its secrets buried with it, is a haunting one. And yet, as we examine the ruins of Hattusa, we are left with more questions than answers. The empire's fall was swift, and its causes remain elusive. Were the Hittites victims of their own internal divisions? Did they fall prey to a wave of invasion that swept across the ancient world? Or was there something more profound, a collapse of a civilization that had touched the very foundations of the Bronze Age world? The stones of Hattusa still hold many of these answers, hidden in the inscriptions that line the city's walls. Yet, the full story of the Hittite Empire, its rise, its grandeur, and its sudden disappearance, remains an enigma. And as we continue to uncover more about this lost civilization, one can't help but wonder what other secrets, lost to time, might still lie buried beneath the sands of Anatolia. In the scorching heat of the Mesopotamian desert, beneath the ruins of what was once the greatest civilization of the ancient world, lie traces of a technological marvel that still perplexes modern engineers and archaeologists alike. The ancient Sumerians, the creators of the first known written language and builders of the first cities, are also believed to have constructed one of the most sophisticated water management systems of the ancient world. The very heart of Sumer, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, flourished thanks to its innovative use of water, yet much of their methods remain shrouded in mystery. Nestled between these two life-giving rivers, the Sumerian cities of Uruk, Eridu, and Ur rose from the desolate floodplain, their prosperity linked to their mastery over water. While the rivers themselves were a source of both life and danger, flooding their banks each year, the Sumerians understood the delicate balance required to control this powerful force. The methods they developed to harness the rivers and sustain their people in a land where rainfall is sparse and irregular were truly groundbreaking. Water in Sumer was not only a necessity, it was a symbol of life, fertility, and divine blessing. Cities were built around monumental canals, irrigation systems, and complex waterworks that were intended not just to serve practical needs, but also to embody the power of the gods. These systems were an essential part of the Sumerians' agricultural prosperity, enabling them to transform their desert surroundings into lush farmlands capable of feeding a burgeoning population. The most remarkable feature of the Sumerian waterworks was their advanced use of canals. These intricate networks of artificial rivers and ditches connected the great rivers to the city centers, distributing water across vast distances. Archaeological evidence suggests that Sumerians had mastered the art of controlling the flow of water with precision. It was through these canals that the Sumerians channeled water from the Tigris and Euphrates to irrigate their fields, a practice that allowed them to grow abundant crops in an otherwise unforgiving climate. But it's not just the canals that astonish. In excavations of Sumerian sites, scholars have uncovered evidence of subterranean water systems, underground pipes and drains that moved water with great efficiency beneath the surface. These early forms of plumbing are nothing short of astonishing, considering the technology available to the Sumerians. Some of these pipes were made of fired clay and were meticulously laid out in ways that suggest a highly organized and advanced urban planning system. It's believed that the Sumerians used these systems not just for irrigation, but to supply water to their homes, temples, and even the grand ziggurats that towered over their cities. Yet, despite the impressive sophistication of these waterworks, there are unanswered questions. How exactly did the Sumerians develop such advanced plumbing techniques? No clear records exist detailing the methods used to create and maintain these systems. Some researchers believe that they may have relied on trial and error, while others suggest that there may have been a deeper, more esoteric knowledge at play. Did they possess an understanding of water management that was far beyond what we would expect for a civilization at their level of technological development? And then there is the question of the engineering behind their water management systems. Some of the most baffling discoveries are related to the complexity and precision of the canals and water storage systems. The Sumerians were able to create reservoirs that held vast amounts of water, enough to sustain their cities even in times of drought. But how did they ensure the water would remain clean and uncontaminated? Some scholars have speculated that the Sumerians might have used filtration systems, possibly involving sand or charcoal, long before such methods were known in other parts of the world. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Sumerian waterworks is the mystery surrounding their maintenance. Given the delicate nature of the irrigation systems, it's likely that they required constant upkeep to prevent clogging, erosion, and other forms of decay. But did the Sumerians have a way of maintaining these vast networks over centuries? Some researchers point to the possibility of a highly organized labor force, while others suggest that there could have been a secret tradition of knowledge passed down through generations, a form of engineering wisdom that was kept closely guarded by the priesthood or ruling elite. There is also the strange coincidence that many of these advanced waterworks appeared during the rise of Sumer's city-states, often attributed to a burst of technological innovation in response to the growing population and urbanization. But could there be another explanation? Some have proposed that the Sumerians' waterworks were not solely the product of their own ingenuity, but rather the inheritance of a forgotten knowledge, perhaps from an older lost civilization, or even from visitors from distant lands. Could the Sumerians have had contact with other cultures who possessed advanced water management techniques? And were they simply building on this foreign knowledge? As the Sumerians built their cities atop the riverbanks, their canals and waterworks were as much a testament to their power and foresight as to their understanding of the forces of nature. Yet, the most enigmatic question remains: how much of their knowledge was truly their own, and how much was the result of secrets long forgotten by history? While modern scholars continue to study the remnants of Sumer's waterworks, we are left to ponder, could there have been even more hidden techniques, buried deep beneath the earth or submerged under the waters, that would further illuminate the Sumerians' understanding of water and engineering? Or are we merely scratching the surface of a greater mystery, one that could reshape our understanding of ancient technology? High in the rugged mountains of eastern Anatolia, near the shores of Lake Van, the ruins of the Urartu kingdom lie scattered across the landscape. Once a formidable power that ruled over much of the region, the kingdom's capital, Tushpa, stood as a beacon of strength and culture. Today, the remnants of its stone fortresses and elaborate inscriptions tell a story of mystery, one that stretches back more than 2 millennia. Yet, despite the tangible evidence of Urartu's once thriving civilization, the true fate of the kingdom remains as elusive as the snow-capped peaks that surround it. The Urartians, a people whose origins are still debated, emerged in the 9th century BCE. They established a kingdom in the highlands of what is now modern-day Turkey, Armenia, and Iran. At its peak, Urartu rivaled the mighty Assyrians to the south, and its rulers built vast fortresses, temples, and cities. They were skilled in metallurgy, particularly the forging of iron weapons, and they developed complex irrigation systems to support their agriculture in the harsh mountainous environment. Their art, inscribed on stone, tells of kings and gods, battles fought, and alliances formed. Yet there is one story they never fully reveal: what happened to them. Archaeological sites like the fortress of Erebuni near modern-day Yerevan in Armenia, with its commanding views of the surrounding plains, offer clues about the kingdom's military might. The inscriptions found there mention the great Urartian kings, who boasted of their victories over their enemies and their control over vast territories. Yet despite this evident power, no one can say for certain why Urartu faded from history. The most striking feature of the Urartian kingdom was its architecture. The fortified cities and citadels they constructed were marvels of military engineering. Massive stone walls, designed to withstand sieges, still stand in some places, their surfaces etched with royal inscriptions. These inscriptions, written in a script related to the Hurrian language, have provided historians with a glimpse into Urartian society. Yet, despite the wealth of archaeological evidence, the final chapter of their civilization remains unwritten. Theories about the fall of Urartu abound. Some suggest that the kingdom's collapse was due to the constant pressure from the expanding Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians, known for their brutal conquests, repeatedly attacked Urartu throughout the 8th century BCE, weakening the kingdom's power. It is believed that by the end of the 7th century BCE, Urartu's influence had waned considerably, and its territories were gradually absorbed into Assyrian holdings. But even as Assyria expanded, the Urartians fought back, and for a time it seemed as though they might hold their ground. The great Urartian king Sardur II, whose name is immortalized in inscriptions across the region, successfully repelled Assyrian invasions and even conquered new territories. And yet, despite these victories, the kingdom began to unravel. Was it the pressure from their enemies that ultimately led to the kingdom's fall, or was something else at play? Another theory suggests that the collapse of Urartu could have been triggered by internal strife. The Urartian kingdom was a complex society, and its rulers were often engaged in power struggles with each other. Inscriptions reveal a fragmented kingdom, with local rulers sometimes asserting their autonomy from the central authority. Could these internal divisions have made the kingdom vulnerable to collapse? Were there court intrigues, betrayal, or a breakdown of leadership that hastened its decline? Environmental factors may have also played a role in Urartu's disappearance. The kingdom was heavily reliant on its agricultural systems, which were supported by an elaborate network of irrigation channels that diverted water from the mountains. But as climate patterns shifted, it's possible that these systems became less effective. Drought, coupled with soil erosion and deforestation, may have led to agricultural collapse, causing food shortages that destabilized the kingdom. However, there are also more speculative theories surrounding the fall of Urartu. Some suggest that the Urartians were the victims of a catastrophic natural disaster, an earthquake or volcanic eruption, that destroyed their cities and left them vulnerable to invasion. The region around Lake Van, where Urartu was centered, is geologically active, and ancient accounts speak of great tremors. Could such a disaster have played a role in the kingdom's sudden decline? The most curious aspect of Urartu's fate, however, lies in the lack of a definitive explanation. Unlike the more thoroughly documented rises and falls of other ancient empires, the disappearance of the Urartian kingdom is not neatly recorded in history. There are no grand historical texts or eyewitness accounts to explain the kingdom's downfall. The silence surrounding Urartu invites further speculation. Did the kingdom simply fade away over time, absorbed into the Assyrian Empire and the cultures that followed? Or did the Urartians face an extraordinary, sudden catastrophe that left no survivors to record their story? As the centuries passed, the once great cities of Urartu were abandoned. The ruins, now scattered and overgrown with vegetation, stand as a silent testimony to a civilization that rose to greatness and then vanished. The mystery of why the Urartu kingdom disappeared without a trace haunts scholars to this day. Perhaps the most profound question remains: what secrets did the Urartians carry with them when they disappeared? Could there have been hidden knowledge or forgotten wisdom embedded in their cities, their art, or their inscriptions that might shed light on the fate of this enigmatic civilization? Or did they, too, fall victim to the relentless forces of time, nature, and conflict that erase the footprints of history. The disappearance of the Urartu kingdom is a puzzle that has yet to be fully solved. And as we continue to sift through the ruins and decipher the inscriptions, we are left to wonder what remains buried in the earth, waiting to be uncovered.